This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Kid Naruto was trained by Tobi. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
After his parents ignored him to train his sister Naruto, whom they claimed was the child of prophecy, Naruto sat on top of his one safe place and wept. His mother and father have lavished the girl with affection ever since the night of the Kyuubi attack, when the Sandaime Hokage had given his life to seal the giant fox inside his sister. They have always insisted that she must be prepared for the pivotal moments when she would alter the course of history. As a result, Naruto was disregarded by almost everyone, including his parents. When he had approached his father a few hours prior to ask if he would assist him with his academy jutsu practice, the older blonde had declined, stating that he would be taking Naruto out to train and practice more jutsu. In addition, his mother dismissed Naruto after stating that she would accompany him. He cried, "Why do they always ignore me?" A voice behind him asked, "Who does?" Naruto jumped and turned to see a figure standing there, all black, wearing an orange mask with a single eye hole on the left side. With caution, Naruto said, "My parents." He approached and sat down beside the blonde, nodding. "I see. You're Naruto, aren't you?" he asked, which caused him to nod. "I know about you. I've been keeping an eye on the Yondaime for some time now, and I see how he and Kushina treat you. It isn't fair, is it?" "No. Why do they always pay attention to Naruto?" "Because they have made a mistake in thinking that she will one day change the world," the man responded, "but I think they are wrong." "You do?" "Yes. I think that you are the special one. You don't have any of those gifts that she does, yet you work so hard and try your best in everything. That is something special that should be embraced by everyone, not ignored for some girl that has a demon inside of her." Naruto questioned, "What demon?" The man then described to him the Kyuubi attack and how Naruto was the one who had the demon imprisoned inside of her. "But just because she has some extra help doesn't mean that she is the child of prophecy," said the man. "I guess," murmured Naruto. "Tell me, Naruto, do you know the story of the wolves and fox?" he demanded. "No. The story goes that there was a small and clever fox that got trapped by a pack of big strong wolves. These wolves made the fox hunt for them and bring them food, making them start to get lazy while the fox got stronger and stronger. It took some time, but soon the fox was able to escape from the wolves that had gotten fat and lazy while the fox was now strong and fast. The moral of the story is that if you work hard you can do anything." Naruto grinned and said, "Wow, I want to be like that fox." "Maybe you can be little fox. Tomorrow is the festival for the Kyuubi's defeat and the birthday party for your sister, right?" After nodding, Naruto said, "Yeah, it is. Come back here tomorrow night, and I will help you escape this den of wolves." The individual stated, "Come back here tomorrow and I will help you get strong. Come back here tomorrow and I will care for you from now on." "Okay. I'll be back tomorrow night." Naruto nodded in agreement and began to smile. "Tobi." Tobi nodded, and the blonde nodded in agreement before sprinting back to his house from the top of the monument. Tobi watched, aware that what had just happened would alter the course of history. In order to ensure his survival, Naruto started packing that evening, gathering the necessary equipment for his departure. As he prepared to leave, he thought that as a last straw against his parents for their treatment of him, he might as well take something of value from them. Naruto was left alone, as he had desired, when his parents and sister went shopping for the party the following day. Soon after, he had the family library locked, took Minato's scroll of sealing, and only allowed Kushina and Naruto to view it. But after countless times of watching his father open the scroll, Naruto made sure to turn off the security seal before putting it by his pack. After that, he proceeded to the armory and began removing various weapons, such as his mother's sword, aka Rippa, Red Ripper, while making sure to take his father's Hiraishin seal off of everything. When the party was in full swing and he was certain that no one would notice him missing, he waited until dusk after packing. A young heiress to the Hyuga clan was the only one who noticed Naruto had disappeared into the darkness. "There you are," Tobi said, observing Naruto come toward him with a big pack full of items, including a blood-red katana and a large scroll. "I see you brought some things." Naruto grinned broadly and said, "Just some stuff to help make me stronger or to live with." They began to walk after Tobi nodded and waved for Naruto to follow. They were far from Konohagakure no Sato by the time Tobi consented to stop, and it was already dawn. "Now I'm going to tell you a few things while we rest." Tobi started as Naruto nodded. "What we are going to do is head for a group of people that I have been gathering called the Akatsuki. There we can start training you and make you stronger." Naruto questioned, "Are the Akatsuki strong? And one of them has eyes that were once the same eyes that the Rakuto Sennin had." Tobi assured Naruto, "All of them are S rank." Naruto's eyes widened, And he waited for Tobi to go on. We have plenty of very strong people that will train you in this way. You will never be looked down on by anyone. After listening to Tobi with stars in his eyes, Naruto's masked companion informed him that it was time to resume. Minato didn't realize Naruto wasn't there until several hours after dawn. He yelled, "Kushina? Have you seen Naruto?" She yelled back, "No, I haven't seen him since last night." Minato scowled in response. At some point during the day, he always saw his son, even though he didn't spend much time with the blonde. The bed was made when he approached his room and opened the door, and there was little evidence that he had ever been there. After looking all over the house for Naruto, Minato concluded that he must have gone to a friend's house. When he discovered that his scroll was gone, he went to the library a few hours later to look through it and determine what he and Naruto should work on next. Upon discovering his wife, he exclaimed, "Kushina! Someone has taken the scroll of sealing." After Kushina's eyes widened, they proceeded to the armory, where they discovered that aka Rippa had also vanished. Soon after, they had an Anbu squad scouring the village for any clues as to where the items had disappeared and for the potential perpetrator, but to no avail. They discovered Naruto was also missing that evening. They looked all over the village for him, but they couldn't find him. At that point, Minato was forced to assemble the Anbu and order them to extend the search outside of Konoha. Search the area, the entire border of Hai no Kuni. Find Naruto and bring him back. He may have been kidnapped by an enemy village. Odds are that they also took the items that we have found missing from my household as well. Minato gave his order. "Hi Hokage. Sama," the Anbu said, nodding before vanishing. Naruto and Tobi, however, had crossed the border and were now in Aim no Kuni. The blonde was taken aback by the unceasing rain and the abundance of water in the country. He was soon shown to a trio by Tobi, one of whom was a man with orange hair and black piercings protruding from his face. Naruto thought he was strange, and his eyes were ripples of purple. A blue-haired woman with an origami flower in her hair came next, and she gave Naruto a wary look. Of the three, the last was the most peculiar. He had a half-black, half-white body that gave the impression that a Venus flytrap was eating him. The white half had a green eye and a visible mouth, while the black half had a mouthless eye that was entirely yellow. "Naruto, meet the people that will be helping to look after you while I am away," Tobi explained. The orange-haired man is the vessel for the true man with the Rinnegan, Nagato. The man nodded calmly. The young lady is his friend Konan. And the last is Zetsu, a literal split personality. Zetsu simply chuckled in two distinct voices, while Naruto smiled and said, "Cool." Konan questioned, "Why have you brought him here, Tobi? He is going to be a valuable assist one day. This is the true child of prophecy," Tobi responded. Calmly, Nagato questioned, "Is he now? What makes you so sure?" "Call it a hunch." Tobi responded, "Like my hunch about how things would play out here a long time ago." Zetsu raised his voice, and Nagato merely nodded. The white one said, "So what can he do?" And the black half went on, "Is he strong?" As Naruto put down the scroll and the katana, Tobi grinned and said, "He has potential, and he brought with him some very interesting items." "Those are items from Konohagakure," Konan added. "They belong to the Hokage and his wife." Tobi answered, "And he is their ignored son." "I see. Then you are Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." "A distant relation." Nagato replied, "I too am from the Uzumaki clan." "So we're related?" A smiling Naruto inquired. Nagato said, "We are. I will help you train and be strong as well, cousin." As she gazed at him, Konan grinned and said, "I will too. He will be quite powerful when he gets older." "I guess I can help too. Of course we will help." "Excellent. Now Naruto, you need to do what they say. I have important things to do and people to recruit." "Nagato, get Kisame to help him learn Kenjutsu. Might as well help him learn to use what he took." Tobi gave the order. Tobi glanced at Naruto, and Nagato nodded, "I will inform him." "Now you be a good boy for them and I will see you again soon," Tobi said. As Tobi turned and walked away, Naruto nodded and Konan knelt beside him, putting a consoling hand on his shoulder. "Okay. Come on, you must be exhausted. Let's find you a room and you can get some sleep. Tomorrow we will see what you can do and help you be strong," Konan said. Naruto smiled and followed the three into Aim, saying, "Right." The following day, Nagato and Konan brought Naruto to a training area where they required him to execute all of the jutsu he had learned as well as perform a variety of exercises. It wasn't much, but he showed himself to be mediocre. "We have a lot of work to do," Nagato said as he pulled out a scroll and gave it to Naruto. "I want you to learn a jutsu from here every month. The first few are easy, but they get progressively harder. Also, Since you cannot seem to use a standard bunshin, I want you to go into the scroll of sealing and learn the cage bunshin. This will serve multiple purposes. Naruto nodded and said, got it Nagato, sensei. Okay Naruto. I'm going to be helping you learn the knowledge aspect of being a shinobi. Conan responded, because you can't just be all brawn with no brains. Right. Naruto nodded as Conan made him sit while she began by going over the various facts he would need and the practical aspects of being a shinobi. Although Naruto found his to be challenging at times, Conan was a patient teacher who would not let him go on to the next topic until he had mastered what she had requested. When they were done, they got up and noticed a man with blue skin who appeared to be a shark was approaching. He had 2 practice swords and a huge, bandaged sword on his back. So this is the brat that he wants me to train? He inquired. This is him. Nagato grinned. Naruto, this is Kisame, your Kenjutsu instructor. Naruto bowed and said, nice to meet you. As he threw him the practice blade, Kisame laughed and said, yeah. Let's see what you got. Holding the blade as he had seen his mother hold it when teaching Naruto advanced, swinging it at Kisame, who deflected it with ease but allowed Naruto to continue his onslaught of blows, grinning that someone who had only witnessed this much and had never really trained himself could perform this well. Only a few seconds later, Kisame smirked as he stepped forward to disarm Naruto after blocking another swing. You got some talent, and you seem to have watched some good people, but here is where I start pushing you to the point where you could eventually become a swordsman of my caliber. Kisame laughed as Naruto became extremely concerned. For the remainder of the afternoon, Kisame worked with Naruto until he was completely exhausted, to the point where he was unable to walk. Conan had to carry him back to his room, where she placed him on the bed and made sure he ate some soup she had brought. Naruto questioned, is this how it's going to be every day? Conan nodded and said, at first, but things will get better. Really? Inquired Naruto. Yes, soon you won't be so tired after training and will be able to walk back on your own, and the training will get tougher and tougher. Soon you will be a force to be reckoned with, once you manage to complete your training. Conan grinned. Naruto simply smiled as he continued to eat before dozing off. As she tucked him in and left, leaving the blonde to rest, Conan simply grinned. Minato was concerned about Naruto back in Konoha. Anbu had informed him on multiple occasions that Naruto was missing and that they were unable to find him at all. Even worse, they were still no closer to determining which way he had gone or where those priceless items had disappeared to. After reading another note with a sigh, Minato left the room to find Jiraiya waiting for him. His words were, Minato. Minato sighed, Jiraiya, sensei. Quite bluntly, Jiraiya said, I heard Naruto is missing. Minato clarified, he is. I don't know where he went to. Minato was shocked when Jiraiya yelled, and how is that possible? He's your son. You should be looking after him. I do, Minato responded. Is that so? Then how is it that a 5-year-old boy managed to take both the scroll of sealing, and aka Rippa, and managed to slip away without so much as a trace? Jiraiya inquired. Minato said, he must have been taken. By who? Kiri? They're too busy fighting themselves to do that. Kumo? They haven't tried anything since you made it perfectly clear that another kidnapping would end with another war. Iwa? They're too terrified of you to even enter Hai no Kuni half the time. Suna? They would more likely kill the boy and leave him as a message to you. Some other small country? They would have left a ransom? Jiraiya went through the list. It's more likely that he ran off while you focused so much on Naruto. Minato was about to respond to this when Jiraiya interrupted him. I've been back for a few days now and I've seen how you treat Naruto. You completely ignore him so you can train your daughter. It sickens me to see the way you treated your son, the way you ignored the boy you named after the character from my first book. You have disappointed me, Minato. Now that he understood the veracity of his teacher's statement, Minato looked down in embarrassment. He had given Naruto a lot of attention because he believed she was the child of destiny, but he had neglected Naruto, and it was now possible that he wouldn't be able to make up for that error. Minato questioned, do you know what has happened to him? No, I don't. Jiraiya murmured, I went to meet an informant that night and wasn't around for the party. But that is obviously when Naruto slipped away. Ask around and see who noticed him leave. You might get a lead from there. After giving this a nod, Minato sent his Anbu to every partygoer in an attempt to learn more about what transpired on the night of the celebration. Hinata quickly had a tracking team up there looking for Naruto after learning that he had witnessed him leave, heading towards the Hokage monument. They were soon following the trail, all the way to the border where Naruto had crossed and was now out of Minato's grasp, after they were able to locate both his and another person's scent. Minato sighed, I have failed. Soon, they were returning to the village, where Minato would have to inform his wife that their son had left the country and was with someone who couldn't be identified. They could be dead, for all they knew. Knowing that they had forced their only son to flee, Minato felt guilty about what he had done, and he knew Kushina would too. After diligently training for several months to become proficient in every technique Nagato had taught him, Naruto was now standing at the level of a genin a year later. In addition, Konan had instilled in him a greater amount of knowledge, enabling him to confidently recite facts about various nations, wars, and significant figures from the histories of different villages. Zetsu had taught Naruto the better ways to espionage and wilderness survival, teaching the young blonde to be a cunning jerk and to learn everything his adversaries did before they knew anything about him. Naruto could now spar with the older nin for a few minutes while still being able to walk back to his room because Kisame had kept up with the Kenjutsu training. 2 new members had joined during this period. The blonde had caught the attention of Kakuzu, a man who assisted him in practicing ninjutsu and even in honing his chakra control. The other was Sasori, who began teaching Naruto about puppets and poisons and had the appearance of a young boy. As Naruto attempted to operate the puppet Sasori had given him, he grumbled, "Sasori. Sensei, I'm not very good at this." "It's fine. This is a complex skill. It requires great amounts of chakra control and lots of patience. However, this is also good for chakra control and teaching you how the different puppets work so you can handle a fight against any puppet master from my former village." Sasori clarified as he allowed Naruto to continue. His Naruto had seen Tobi multiple times this year, and each time he returned with a present for the blonde, whether it was new kunai and shurikens or candy. The man in the mask stated that he would be temporarily absent in order to attend to some unresolved matters in Konohagakure. Naruto was certain that Tobi would be alright, but he was concerned about his friend. A short while later, Nagato recruited a new member to join their group. Orochimaru chuckled as he observed the blonde practicing his water walking exercise, saying, "Kukuku. So you're Naruto-kun." Grasping a kunai, Naruto questioned, "Yeah, who are you?" Looking at the blonde, Orochimaru laughed and said, "I too used to live in Konohagakure no Sato. My name is Orochimaru. I am a new member of the Akatsuki. Leader Sama said that it would be in my best interest to train you." When Naruto asked, "Why'd you leave?" "I was wrong. I was denied the title of the Yondaime Hokage, given to your father instead. Then my former teacher had the nerve to run me out while I worked on experiments to make one stronger." "Stronger?" a smiling Naruto inquired. Orochimaru had to smile now that he had the blonde under his control and could start his experiments over. According to Orochimaru, "Yes, perhaps you might be interested in this." Orochimaru gestured for the blonde to follow him so they could start, and Naruto nodded, "Yeah." Both Nagato, who had all of his bodies en route to the source, and Konan were startled when Naruto's screams tore through the Akatsuki base. They discovered Orochimaru's room, where the blonde was strapped to a table and receiving an injection. As she sent a flurry of paper to separate the man from the young shinobi, Konan yelled, "Orochimaru, what do you think you are doing?" He agreed to this experiment. Orochimaru laughed and said, helping him. Nagato's diva body glared and asked, "Did he?" As Orochimaru pledged, "When the serum is done, feel free to ask him." He did. After a few minutes, the serum eventually stopped, and Naruto stopped yelling in agony. The cerulean orbs had turned into red iris eyes with blackened whites when he opened his eyes. Naruto glanced at her and grinned as Konan gasped at the transformation. As Konan brought him down, Naruto laughed and said, "It's okay, Konan. Sensei. Orochimaru helped me get stronger." Nagato asked Orochimaru, "What have you done?" "A new serum. This one brings out the latent potential in the person, unleashing their full strength. However, I have had to add another serum that will help heal the person since this much power would shorten the lifespan and I am certain that Naruto would like to live for some time." Orochimaru laughed. "I have various other serums as well that I am sure that Naruto might be interested in." Naruto retorted, "But I want more. I need time to recover." Although Konan and Nagato exchanged glances, they were aware that the blonde would not be turned away. Naruto was then brought back to his quarters by Konan, where he would recuperate while Konan and Nagato told Tobi what had happened. Minato had devoted himself to his work in Konohagakure as a means of evading his guilt. He had never given up on finding Naruto, and whenever a foreign diplomat assigned them a mission, he told the team to watch out for his son. Naruto had not been heard from thus far, which was even more concerning. In an attempt to help her forget about Naruto, Kushina had taken on the full-time responsibility of training Naruto, making her work harder than the rest of her class. Kushina reprimanded the young blonde girl, saying, "Come on Naruto. You need to move faster than that." As they began again, she gasped, I am trying, I'm only human. Kushina reminded her, you need to be the best you can be. You have to be more than that. At this, Naruto simply sighed, and they resumed their journey. Naruko hoped Naruto was dead because she silently blamed him for her parents' recent change. She detested him for not being forced to undergo this demanding training and for not being trained day and night. Even worse, she detested him for having the freedom to go and do as he pleased. A week later, Minato learned that Itachi had killed the entire Uchiha clan. Minato was aware of the clan's impending problems, and Danzo had forewarned him that if things didn't settle down quickly, there might be a revolt. The hotheads in the Uchiha clan didn't seem to listen to Minato's repeated arguments with Fukaku, who agreed that it wouldn't be good for the village if things didn't calm down. Except for his brother Sasuke, whom Minato was now keeping an eye on to make sure he didn't hurt himself or someone attempted to complete the task that Itachi had begun. It appears that Itachi had lost his temper and killed everyone. When Tobi and Itachi finally made it to the Akatsuki, they discovered that Naruto had changed significantly. The blonde was much stronger than Tobi remembered him to be before they left, had changed in appearance, and had grown several inches. As Kisame wasn't going all out against the blonde was holding his own fairly well in their current sparring match. Tobi said, Nagato, what happened? Orochimaru performed experiments on Naruto. Nagato said, Naruto wanted them done, and he has changed significantly. His chakra control has stabilized, and his reserves are as great as my own. His taijutsu skills are increasing, and I have both myself and Kisame sparring against him regularly, though he is now roughly equal to a Chunin in ability. His ninjutsu skills have skyrocketed as well. He is mastering ninjutsu left and right, and Kakuzu and I are both running out of ninjutsu to teach him. It appears that his primary affinity is for wind, but he can use the other elements easy enough to the point where you can barely tell the difference. Genjutsu just slides right off of him, and his kenjutsu is at the point where Kisame has to take him seriously sometimes to beat him. Tobi reminded himself to give Orochimaru credit for his status report while blinking one eye. He was shocked by Naruto's development, but he was confident he could at least double the blonde's training regimen now that Itachi was present. Keep an eye on him, and work him harder. I want him to be far stronger by this time next year. Tobi gave the order. Then Nagato questioned, for what purpose? Tobi calmly responded as he turned to leave, the village ignored the child of prophecy. I am simply turning that child into a monster to destroy the world. 10 years have passed since Naruto left Konohagakure no Sato, and the blonde has experienced numerous physical and psychological transformations. Due to a significant growth spurt, he was now only slightly shorter than Itachi, and his eyes remained the red and black that Orochimaru's first experiment had made them. He had learned a lot from those tests, and Tobi had also completed some, claiming that they would be beneficial to him. He had developed a strong sense of smell and hearing, a healing ability comparable to that of most Jinchuruki, and a hyper-awareness of danger, which allowed him to easily avoid attacks that even he couldn't see. His thoughts had also changed significantly, turning much darker than before, and he now viewed the Akatsuki and most other people as pawns. He thought it was stupid that they wanted to stop the war, or at least Nagato did. Although Tobi was aware of his other objective, he showed no interest in it. Now, the blonde was making her way through the hallways to meet Tobi, who had informed her that he had a mission for him. The blonde wore all black, with light armor on his back, chest, and arms and legs that could be used as shields in the event of an attack. He wore the Akatsuki cloak over everything as well, but since he wasn't an official member, he didn't have one of the rings. With Orochimaru having escaped and new members like Deidara and Hidan joining, the Akatsuki's lineup had evolved over time. Currently, they were primarily paired off, with Zetsu working alone and Tobi acting as a shadow. Naruto walked into Tobi's room and said, "You wanted to see me?" "Ah yes. You see, I owed Orochimaru a favor for his work on you, and he has sent me a message calling it in," Tobi clarified. Naruto questioned, "What does he want?" "Your help," Tobi responded, explaining that Orochimaru wanted Naruto to help him carry out his plan to destroy Konoha. Naruto smirked and said, "And you think that this is a good idea?" Tobi laughed while outlining Naruto's mission and then nodded for him to go, saying, "I don't. So I am giving you different orders." After returning to his room and reclaiming aka Rippa, the blonde merely nodded. He strapped the blade to his side and headed out of the rainy country, eventually reaching Otogakure, where Orochimaru was waiting for him. He smiled and said, "Ah Naruto-kun, I have been expecting you. I was told that you called in your only favor left with the Akatsuki to get me here for this job of yours," said Naruto. Orochimaru guaranteed, "Yes, but with this you can get your revenge against Konoha as well." He then guided the boy through the underground labyrinth and into the meeting room, where Orochimaru's personal bodyguards were present along with a number of Oto Nin. "Now that we are all here, let us begin," Orochimaru said as he set up the map. "The Chunin exams will be beginning soon, that is our opening. As an official village I will be sending in one team, meant to be cannon fodder for Sasuke once he awakens his cursed seal that I will place on him during the second exam. We won't begin the invasion until the third exam, when most of the village will be distracted by the finals. We have gained the support of Sanagakure in this, and the signal to begin will be their Jinchuruki transforming in the middle of the arena. And if he doesn't make it," snorted Naruto, "he will." Orochimaru calmly responded, "He has never sustained an injury in all of his missions, and he has gone on some very dangerous ones. He will destroy anyone that gets in his way. Now all of you will receive different assignments on the day of the invasion, but as of now we are in the preparation stage." Naruto said, "And what am I to do?" "You will be entering the exam as well. You will be a team from AIM, going through the exams. Your job is to ensure that Sasuke survives this situation so that I can claim him later." Orochimaru continued, "On the day of the invasion, you are free to attack what you will." As he left the room, Naruto said, "Okay, I will let AIM know to get a background set up." Kimimaro cautioned, "My lord, I do not trust him." "You would be wise not to." Orochimaru replied, "I only requested that he be here because he can possibly turn the tides of a bad situation. He is as strong as most members of the Akatsuki." Concerned about the blonde's potential for harm, most of the shinobi in the room blinked and glanced at the door where she had left. After 2 days of establishing all the details, Naruto proceeded to create 2 hanged clones that resembled his 3-man cell. For this exam, he adopted a false identity and made sure to take the AIM headband that Konan had sent him instead of the Akatsuki cloak. He experienced a rush of nostalgia as he strolled back into the village and allowed his eyes to wander over the well-known sights. Soon after, he heard a commotion in a side street and made the decision to investigate. As he turned the corner, he noticed a blonde girl behind a Sanagakure genin in a full bodysuit holding a young boy aloft. Naruto immediately judged the pink-haired girl in front of him to be worthless. Naruto instantly recognized the other, a blonde with long pigtails. Naruto yelled, "Put Konohamaru down," at the boy. The boy shot back, "Not till I teach this shrimp some manners." The other girl sighed and turned to face her teammate, saying, "Kankuro, stop it. If Gaara finds out, he will kill us." As he prepared to strike Konohamaru, Kankuro said, "That's why I'll make this quick." There was a brief gust of wind before the fist could make contact because Naruto had already stepped past the 2 girls, grabbed Kankuro's fist, and grasped the boy's wrist. Looking at Kankuro, who blinked at the eyes and recalled the report about the S-rank nin that would be working with them with those eyes, Naruto said, "I would put down the young boy before I lose my temper." Kankuro stepped back and dropped Konohamaru, saying, "Okay. Good." Naruto nodded, turning to face the nearby tree with a red head with a gourd on his back and the tattoo of love on his forehead. "Enjoy the show?" he asked. In a monotone, he said, "Yes. Who are you that has awoken mother so?" Naruto calmly retorted, "I hope you can meet my expectations, you foe in these exams." As she gazed at the teenager, who smirked before vanishing in a whirlpool of sand, the girl whispered, "Gaara." Naruto merely grinned as he observed the other 2 Suna nin, who swiftly turned and departed. Naruto glared at the newcomer and growled, "I had it under control." Naruto shocked the 2 girls by turning to face her and saying, "Clearly you didn't. If you had then I wouldn't have stepped in." Naruto sniffed, "Shows what you know." The pink-haired girl, who appeared somewhat frightened of the new guy, said, "Naruto, you shouldn't pick fights." Naruto looked at the other girl and nodded, transforming her value from completely worthless to mostly worthless. "I'd listen to your friend." "I don't care what you say, Sakura, this punk just barged in like he owned the place," Naruto yelled. Sakura tried to start, but, as Naruto glared at him, Naruto smirked and said, "Don't both Sakura-san. This brat likes hearing herself bark. This is supposed to be the child of prophecy." "I am disappointed," Naruto said. As the boy in black left them standing there, Naruto blinked at what he had said. Since so few people were even aware of the prophecy, she couldn't understand how he had learned about it. She shook her head and made the decision to watch this stranger and see how these tests would go. Naruto and his 2 clones entered the building the following day, passing a group of genin who were ensnared in a genjutsu, as the Chunin exams got underway. Naruto went to the 3rd floor, opened the doors, and stepped into the room, observing everyone from the sidelines. In disguise as a Kusa nin, he saw Orochimaru employing the same tactic Naruto had used on the cage bunshin. Then he discovered Gaara and his teammates, looking at him anxiously. At last, he selected the auto team that would be sacrificed in order to further Orochimaru's schemes. Given the likelihood that they had no idea what would happen to them, Naruto tried to commit each of their faces to memory. One appeared to be a mummy, entirely covered in bandages. A boy who appeared to be a haughty jerk came next. The final one was a girl Naruto thought was pretty cute after examining her. With a shout of, "Showtime!" Naruto kicked open the door and entered as if she owned the place. Naruto glanced at her and her teammates, smirking as he observed them scan the room. Naruto approached the blonde with the odd eyes who was standing with two other people, but Sasuke stopped her. "Don't be an idiot," Sasuke said. "You pick a fight here, you might get us kicked out of here." Naruto shot back, "They wouldn't kick us out." "Yes they would. The proctors don't like anyone starting fights before the designated area." Sasuke answered quietly. "And your parents can't do anything about it either." At this, Naruto huffed angrily and simply glared at the blonde. Sasuke just shook his head and made the decision to talk to the person who was so annoying to his teammate. He approached the blonde, paused in front of him, and gazed into his odd eyes, which made him think of the Sharingan. Sasuke said, "So you're the one that pissed Naruto off so much?" "I am. And you must be Sasuke Uchiha." Naruto replied, "I've heard a lot about you. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." Sasuke laughed, "What should I call you?" In a composed manner, Naruto answered, "Yami. These are my teammates Aku and Sumi." Looking at the two men with raven hair, who merely nodded, Sasuke said, "Pleasure. So you're from AIM?" he asked. "Yes." Naruto replied, "We're a fresh team and our sensei said that we should take these exams to see how we stack up against other genin our age." "Not many genin in AIM." Shrugging, Naruto said, "Not really." When a platinum blonde tackle gave the Uchiha a hug, the two continued to chat. "Miss me, Sasuke-kun?" she said, giving him a hug. Sakura yelled, "Get off of him Ino," as she made an attempt to remove the girl from her teammate. As he noticed other genin coming, Naruto grinned. A teenager with pineapple hair sighed, troublesome. He passed Ino with a fat boy who was eating a bag of chips. As lively as ever, a dog wielding boy exclaimed as he and his group passed them. Naruto grinned at the boy and said, "Kiba, I was wondering why I smelled wet dog." Kiba yelled back, "Hey," to the blonde girl. The girl on his team looked at the other genin and paused her gaze on Naruto, pleading with him, "Kiba, please don't fight." She seemed to almost recognize him and scowled at him. Before she could respond, a spectacled boy came up. He said, "You guys sure are noisy." Naruto frowned as he asked, "And who are you?" "I'm Kabuto, a veteran of these exams you could say." He grinned. Sakura inquired, "How many times have you taken it?" Kabuto laughed and remarked, "This is my 8th time." Kiba laughed and said, "Man you suck. It's not that I'm bad, it's that these exams are tough." Kabuto clarified, "But because I've been here so often I managed to gather quite a lot of information on the other competitors." Sasuke questioned, "Even first-time competitors?" Kabuto nodded, "Yep." Sasuke said, "Give me the cards for Rock Lee, Subaku no Gaara, and Yami." Naruto grinned when he saw that Sasuke had singled him out as a possible danger. After that, Kabuto pulled out the 3 cards, which included the person's picture, general abilities, and the number of missions they had taken since they had turned into genin. Lee made up for his lack of ninjutsu or genjutsu skills with remarkable taijutsu abilities, making him an intriguing case. Gaara only knew how many missions he had completed and that he had never been wounded during any of them. That was about all the information he knew. Last but not least was Yami, whose card was blank except for a photo of him. "What's with this?" cried Naruto. "Sorry, but AIM has closed borders so I haven't gotten any information on this guy really except some rumors that I haven't been able to confirm yet." Kabuto offered an apology. The girl from Kiba's team inquired, "What rumors?" "Well, those eyes aren't a Kekkei Genkai for starters. The next rumor is that he and his entire team are actually a lot higher in the skill department than Chunin, but they haven't been given a chance to test this yet." The boy with the pineapple hair said, "Because they are new genin." "Exactly." Kabuto replied, "The last is that he murdered his previous team and that this one was put together at the last minute." "That last one isn't true," calmly replied Naruto. "The others are, but that last one is false. I have been with Aku and Sume since we were made genin a few months ago." As he filled in the details on the card, Kabuto nodded and said, "That's so. Care to add anything else?" "No," Naruto said, turning to face the chalkboard, where a cloud of smoke first formed and then dissipated, revealing a group of Chunin standing in front of them, accompanied by a man wearing a black bandana and some obvious scars. All right, you maggots. My name is Ibiki and I am the proctor for the first examination. Now line up, take a number and then take your designated seat and then we will get to the test. Ibiki gave the order. After a while, everyone was seated and dispersed throughout the room, away from their teammates. Sitting next to the girl who was staring at him all the time, Naruto was attempting to figure out who he was. Now the first test is a written exam, and this is a team event. You will each start off with 30 points, 10 for each member of the team, and for every question you get wrong you will lose a point. The teams with the highest point values will move on to the next round. Now for some details. If a member of your team fails to answer all of the questions, then your team is out. If you are caught cheating, you will lose 2 points. There are proctors sitting around the room making sure that you little shits don't try anything. Now you have 1 hour to complete the test. Begin, Ibiki clarified. As all of the genin in the room turned their papers over, Naruto glanced over the questions and blinked at how challenging they were. Even in the best of situations, a genin team would not be able to handle this. After considering how Ibiki had described the guidelines, Naruto understood that they needed to cheat in order to complete the questions, which meant that there were most likely a number of chunin strewn among the test takers who had the right answers. With a sly smile, Naruto began responding to the questions, already knowing the majority of the answers and knowing that his clones would too. After completing the 9 questions, he read the brief explanation that the last question would be asked 10 minutes prior to the exam's conclusion. He closed his eyes and listened to the sounds of people writing, allowing his senses to expand. He smirked when he opened his eyes to see that the girl had also completed writing. Done? He inquired. She nodded, saying, yes. Naruto questioned, who'd you copy off of? Some from a person a few rows ahead, and then the rest off of you and your team. Naruto grinned and said, not bad. My name is Yami. No, it isn't, she replied. I know that much for certain, but you are using a code name. True as that is, Yami is all you're going to get out of me. Naruto nodded to her, his smirk turning into a humorous smile. Hinata Hyuga. Naruto smirked as he noticed a slight flush appear on her face and said, Hinata-chan. Teams were being eliminated in no time, and Ibiki was finally ready to ask them the final question. This last question comes with the option of whether or not you take it. Ibiki said, if you chose not to, you and your team will leave this exam now. A genin questioned, then why would we chose not to take it then? As many of the genin began to yell that this wasn't fair and that he couldn't do that, Ibiki curtly responded, because if you get this question wrong, you and your entire team will remain genin forever. I can do this, and for those that have taken Thai's exam before, well, I guess they never had me as a proctor before. So what will you all do? Hinata appeared somewhat alarmed, but she ultimately chose not to raise her hand to be taken away, and Naruto grinned and leaned back in his chair. There were still 22 teams remaining after a number of teams left at this point. Ibiki looked around the room before nodding his head. Very well then. For those of you that remain, you pass. Ibiki cracked a grin. Let me explain, the 10th question was the test itself. If you become a chunin and are asked to lead a mission, where you don't know where exactly your objective is, how many enemies there are between you and it, or the possible traps and defensive features that are made between you and it, do you take it or wait for a safer mission? You take it. There are no safe missions for a shinobi, and anyone that would rather wait for the guarantee instead of taking the chance on the mission doesn't deserve to be a chunin. Naruto questioned, then what was the point of the questions? That was to test your information gathering skills. Almost none of you should have been able to answer those questions, so we had chunins scattered about the room with the correct answers for those of you that were clever enough to find them. Ibiki clarified. This is because sometimes, the right information or false information can change the entire mission. Ibiki subsequently took off the bandana and revealed that he had received. After giving this a serious look, Naruto nodded his admiration for a man who could sustain such harm and still be a shinobi. Ibiki was about to finish when a black bundle flew in and broke the glass. To all of you that have passed, I congratulate you and wish you luck. Your next proctor is. Four kunai erupted, pinning the room's corners up as it was about to reach the center, exposing a woman standing there in a banner. The banner said, Anko Midarashi, in large kanji, and Sexy Kunoichi, in smaller ones underneath. As she began counting the teams, Anko shouted, all right, don't celebrate just yet. I'm Anko Midarashi, your second proctor for this exam. She then turned to face Ibiki and said, 22 teams left? You are slipping. We have some exceptional genin this year. Ibiki calmly answered. Now come on and follow me. Anko grinned as the teams all appeared terrified, save for a few individuals. HMPH. Well, by the time my test is over, I'll cut their numbers in half. Before long, All of the genin were outside a huge gated forest with trees as tall as some of the structures Naruto had seen in AIM. Several genin trembled in terror as Anko said, "Welcome to Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death." Others simply stared at her, waiting for her to say, "Now this exam is a survival exam. For 5 days you all will be locked in here, trying to complete your objective." A genin said, "And what might that be? Glad you asked, shit stain." Anko grinned as she held up 2 scrolls, one titled Heaven and the other titled Earth. "Now all you have to do is this. Each team will be given a scroll to carry on them, and during the 5 days they must get the other scroll that will match theirs and get to the tower in the center of the forest. Now some general rules are this. You and your entire team must arrive at the tower, no exceptions. Do not open your scroll before you get to the tower, and finally try to stay alive." Grinning, Naruto said, "So we're allowed to kill in there?" "Yep, go right ahead, but it's not only the other teams that you need to watch out for. There are plenty of wildlife in there that would love to munch on some tasty genin like yourselves. There are also plenty of poisonous plants as well, so be cautious," Anko clarified. The fat kid from Ino's team yelled, "But what about food?" As soon as Chunin assistants began distributing sheets of paper, Naruto and his group were among the first to sign them and approach Anko to turn them in. "The forest has plenty of food for the experienced outdoorsman," Anko responded. "Now all we need for you to do before you get your scroll is to fill out these liability waivers." After finishing, they were given a gate number to begin it and permitted to enter a line where they would receive a random scroll that would be hidden from view. Everyone had to wait a few minutes to receive their scroll and reach their gate. Anko gave them the all clear over a PA once they arrived system, after which they ventured into the forest. Naruto stopped and began to cut loose, grinning as he nodded for the clones to continue on. Naruto found his first team at Euro, a group from Kirigakuri Euro, in just 10 minutes. They were moving on the forest floor and trying to keep quiet so they could ambush another team. Naruto turned and sent a wave of poisoned shuriken into the final nin, who was unable to even scream in pain or fear because the poison had closed off his windpipe, cutting off all sounds as it did its work and killing him. Naruto merely grinned as he struck from the shadows, drawing aka Rippa as he struck, taking the heads off of 2 of them on the first pass. Naruto sifted through their equipment, taking some of their supplies and then their scroll a Euro, a heaven scroll, which he already had a Euro, while sighing at how simple it was. With a shrug, he sealed it into a smaller scroll and proceeded to target the following team. After killing the remaining stragglers for an hour, Naruto made sure to take their scrolls, which allowed him to obtain 3 full sets and an additional Earth scroll. Naruto stopped on his way to the tower after growing tired of slaying weak genins to witness Orochimaru assaulting Sasuke and his group. While Sakura trembled in terror at Orochimaru, Naruto scowled at what he saw and watched as Orochimaru played with the boy while Naruto was rendered incapable. Sasuke quickly succeeded in launching a surprise counterattack that trapped Orochimaru and struck him with strong fire blasts, but it turned out to be a Tsuchi Bunshin. Orochimaru chuckled as he reached out and bit Sasuke, leaving the cursed seal on him, saying, "Impressive Sasuke-kun." Sakura finally stopped being useless and was able to get Sasuke and Naruto to a shelter that she promptly set up with traps, while Naruto just shook his head as Sasuke collapsed to the ground, suffering from the effects of the new mark. Knowing that this was a component of Orochimaru's plan and that it was too soon to begin obeying his commands, Naruto nodded in agreement and chose to continue. His clones were waiting for him when he finally made it to the tower, which took several hours. He stopped in front of the mural, read it quickly, and then opened the scrolls. At the same time, a Chunin appeared and informed him that he had passed the second exam and that he was the first team to do so. The Chunin went to tell Anko and the Hokage that a team had already passed and said, "Please head for your assigned room and rest there." As the Chunin left, Naruto simply grinned and retired to his room, intending to spend the next few days sleeping while he awaited the outcome of the forest's contest. By the end of the 4 days, Naruto discovered that he had eliminated the majority of the teams, but that a number of others had either lost or been killed. There were currently 6 other teams present, and there were still a few hours left before any last-minute arrivals could occur. Team 7 showed up just as they were allowed entry to a sizable arena, appearing to have suffered injuries in the forest. Naruto was a little taken aback that she had left AIM for this when he saw Konan there as the Jonin instructors for the various teams arrived and lined up. Shortly afterward, Minato came forward to congratulate them on passing the second test. However, there are far too many of you to move straight into the third and final exam. That is why we will be having a preliminary round, Minato said, which caused a few of the genin and questioned the decision. Let me explain. These exams are held not only to test your abilities but to show them to prospective clients and dignitaries from other villages. This can help your village grow stronger if you show that the genin from the village are skilled enough. However, we don't want them sitting around for hours or possibly days while you all compete. That is why we will have a preliminary round to cut your numbers down even more. As he advanced, a Jonin said, "Sir, perhaps I should continue." As he took a step back, Minato nodded and said, "Go ahead, Gecko. Now these will be single combat matches, unless there are an odd number of you, in which case we will have a three-way battle for that. Now if there is anyone that wishes to drop out, now is your chance. This will not affect your team." Gecko clarified, coughing from time to time. Kabuto and Naruto's two clones both raised their hands at this moment. The three departed after Gecko wrote their names down, and the rear wall parted to reveal a huge screen that was displaying their names until it halted on two of them. The first match is Sasuke Uchiha versus Dosu. All others please move up to the viewing area. Gecko yelled. Kabuto's two teammates, the Otto and Sunanin, and Naruto walked to the left. Soon after, Konan stood next to him, both of them focused on the matches. "Surprised that you're here," Naruto replied. "Thought you would be busy with other matters." Nagato said that to maintain the illusion of you being a true genin that your sensei should be here. "This is only for appearances." Konan responded, "Now let's see what Itachi's younger brother can do." As the match began, Naruto merely nodded. Dosu bounded forward, exposing an odd gauntlet with holes in it that began to make a high-pitched sound that only Naruto could clearly hear. Naruto moaned, "That gauntlet of his is emitting sound, ouch." Konan nodded in agreement, saying, "Interesting concept, taking down the opponent's balance." It took Sasuke just a moment to complete the hand signs and start his technique, indicating that he was aware of what the gauntlet did. Dosu barely avoided the enormous fireball that Sasuke roared. Kaden. Ga Kakia. No Jutsu. Fire release. Great fireball technique. Naruto saw what Sasuke had done and grinned as he charged in, two kunai out, one of which had a flash bomb attached, and he threw it while shielding his eyes. This took Dosu by surprise, and when he attempted to use the sound to stop Sasuke, he discovered that the fire was intended to remove his weapon rather than to stop him. Sasuke's arms were trapped behind him, and before long, he was on his back with the kunai at his throat. Gecko yelled, "Winner Sasuke," as the Uchiha nodded, got to his feet, and then flinched as he clutched his neck. Before departing, Kakashi swiftly grabbed the teenager, and Naruto saw that the Otto's sensei had also gone. Konan wrote, "So he did mark him." As the next match was announced, Naruto nodded and said, "Yeah. Not much we can do about it." Gecko exclaimed, "Temari versus Tenten," as the two girls jumped to the ground. Tenten was a member of Lee's team, and Naruto was certain that each of the scrolls she was carrying contained surprises. Tenten attempted to use a flurry of kunai and other throwing weapons to defeat her opponent as the match began, but Temari simply opened her fan and swung it once to create a huge twister that threw Tenten into the ceiling. Temari then stopped the twister and allowed the stunned girl to fall onto her closed fan, draining the girl of all her strength. As the weapons were being removed from the arena floor, Gecko yelled, "Winner Temari," as Temari threw Tenten off her fan and then made her way back up to the stands. Konan. "Sensei, I'm going fishing." Naruto nodded to the other side with a sly smile. As Naruto vanished from view and resurfaced on the opposite platform, Konan merely nodded. He stood by Hinata and her team, moving between a few people. As he stood beside her, Hinata nodded, and Kurenai turned to face the blonde teenager, Yami-san. She said, "Friend of yours?" to her pupil. "Just someone we met during the first exam." Kiba responded, "He really annoys Naruto." Kurenai smirked at the other blonde and said, "Oh really? And what exactly did he do to annoy her so much?" "Stepped into a potential internation incident," replied Naruto. Asuna Nin was about to hit the grandson of the late Sandaime Hokage, and Naruto wasn't helping the situation, so I stepped in and she got mad. When it was announced that Zaku would face Hinata's teammate Shino Aburame in the upcoming match, Kurenai nodded. The taller boy descended the stairs and confronted the injured Otto Nin, who appeared to have both of his arms broken. Kiba inquired, "What happened to him?" Sakura, who was on the other end of the line, responded, "Sasuke did that to him. They tried to attack us, and when Sasuke woke up from his fever, he beat them all." As he observed Zaku maneuver one of his arms and shoot a burst of air at Shino, who vanished in a cloud of insects and reappeared behind Zaku as the insects advanced on the Otto Genin, Naruto merely nodded in response to her explanation. "Give up. You are finished." Shino said quietly, "If you move your arm towards me, the insects will swarm you, and if you keep it aimed at them, I will attack you." Zaku said, "You know, I think I can manage with this arm," as he removed his arm from the sling and pointed it in two different directions simultaneously. His arms exploded as he attempted to fire the blasts once more, and Naruto laughed when he realized what had happened. Naruto questioned, "He had his bugs go into those holes, didn't he?" Hinata nodded, "Yes." Naruto nodded in response, saying, "Impressive. Never taken Aburame lightly, huh?" As the medics removed Zaku and Shino returned to his team, Kiba laughed and said, "Not if you want to live." Ino Yamanaka vs Sakura Haruno was the next match, and Naruto could tell by Kiba's sigh that it would be a bad match. After lowering themselves into the arena, the two made two bunchins, lowered their headbands to cover their foreheads, and hurled shuriken at one another. "Kami above, it's like watching academy students." Naruto sighed as he gazed upon them. "Please tell me all the kunoichi in this village aren't this pathetic and it's just these two." Kurenai glared at him and said, "They aren't." Naruto cried, "Oh, thank you. I detest weak women." Kurenai blinked at that, then returned her attention to the match, which was proceeding slowly, until Ino seemed to decide to chop off her long hair, just like Sakura had done in the forest. After a few more moments of fighting, Ino struck, ready to send her mind into Sakura's body using her family's technique. She poured chakra into her hair just before doing this, causing it to hold Sakura motionless as she launched her thoughts. Ino was about to give up her control once she was inside Sakura's body when Sakura abruptly regained control and forced Ino's thoughts out of her. Shikamaru, who was leaning against the railing, said, "Didn't see that coming. Normally she can't be stopped forced out like that." As the match came to a close, Choji responded, "First time for everything, I guess." They both charged at one another, slugged each other, and passed out. "Kami, that was pathetic. Can I get those minutes of my life back?" asked Naruto. Hinata answered, "Unfortunately no, we all want them back." Akamaru barked his agreement, and Kiba nodded. The next match was called after the two girls were taken off the arena floor. Gekko yelled, "Kankuro vs Choji Akamichi," as the two descended, Kankuro grinning smugly at Choji. Choji used his own family technique to grow larger and transform into a giant rolling tank before charging at Kankuro at the beginning of the match. At this, Kankuro blinked in surprise and jumped out of the way. Then he opened the bundle and saw a big puppet that he began to manipulate. The Suna Genin only had his puppet advance, extend a blade, and make a tiny cut on Choji's side as he rolled past as Choji changed course to run Kankuro over. Choji was back to his usual self, yelling in agony, before he realized what had happened. Gekko shouted, "Winner Kankuro," as the paramedics rushed in and hoisted him onto a gurney. As he made his way back up to the stands, Kankuro declared, "It's Silverthorn poison." After nodding in agreement, the medical staff quickly escorted Choji from the arena to the hospital so he could receive treatment. Gekko yelled, "The next match is Naruto vs Kiba," as the blonde girl cheered and jumped down. As he patted Kiba's arm, Naruto said, "Kick her ass." As he and Akamaru walked into the arena, Kiba grinned smugly and laughed, "No problem." After giving Akamaru a soldier pill, Kiba initiated contact and the dog changed into a feral looking Kiba. The pair then struck after Kiba mimicked the transformation, spinning and turning into a lethal piercing attack that bounced around the floor and walls, making it extremely unpredictable. Kiba roared, "Gatuska," as they hit. Naruto merely chuckled as she ducked around the tactic, going with the flow and navigating the constantly changing spaces before striking as they came to a halt. She yelled, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," and made a clone that attacked one of the Kibas while she pursued the other. As he observed her battle, Naruto dissected her taijutsu abilities, noting that Kushina and Minato had not neglected her training, that she was easily as strong as the majority of Chunin, and that these tests were merely a formality to help her advance in her career. She beat Kiba and Akamaru to a pulp in a matter of minutes, and they were quickly carted out as well. "That sucked," Naruto said. "I was hoping Kiba would wipe the floor with her." "Not very likely. She's one of the strongest shinobi this year," replied Kurenai. "I'd be shocked if anyone here could best her." "It's still early," replied Naruto. "You haven't seen all the competitors yet, and I know for a fact that the red head over there will destroy his opponent." Kurenai gazed only at the blonde before shifting her attention to the next match on the screen. As the two girls descended, Gekko yelled, "Hinata Hyuga vs Kin." Naruto now leaned forward, eager to see how strong these two teenagers would be. Before closing the distance and hitting multiple of Kin's Tenketsu points, sealing her chakra and causing her to fall, Kin threw a senbon with a bell attached at the beginning of the match, which Hinata easily avoided. Kin then threw two more senbons, one with and one without, which Hinata blocked with a simple Jiyuken. When Hinata walked back up, Gekko yelled, "Winner Hinata." Naruto nodded to her, and the next match was dubbed Neji Hyuga vs Shikamaru. As the two teenagers approached and faced one another, Shikamaru was already leading the fight by a number of moves, while Neji followed suit and already knew how to handle Shikamaru. Neji had jumped away and used a flash bomb at the beginning of the match, which set it off and caused all of the shadows in the arena to vanish. He had then closed his eyes and let his Byakugan guide him to a blinded Shikamaru, where he quickly closed all of his Tenketsu points, causing Shikamaru to fall to the ground as the match ended in a matter of seconds. That was ruthless. Naruto replied, it was like night and day between you two. Hinata nodded, a little anxious that she might have to compete against her cousin in the upcoming round. Yes. My cousin is very strong. Subaku no Gaara and Rock Lee faced off in the following match, and Naruto was positive that Lee was messed up. Lee faced Gaara's sand shield, which shielded him from harm, at the beginning of the match. Guy soon allowed Lee to take off his weights, and as soon as he did, they hit the floor with a spectacular boom. Naruto asked Guy, Kami, how much do those weigh? Guy smiled and said, as much as needed. Lee won't lose easily. When Naruto noticed that Lee had accelerated to the point where he could breach the shield and strike Gaara, he said, Have you seen this guy he's facing? Naruto noticed sand falling as he struck the teenager and recognized that he was wearing a layer of sand as armor. Lee quickly struck and used his technique, slamming the red-headed teenager into the ground while trapping Gaara in bandages with Omat Renge. Front Lotus. This didn't work, though, because the sand had cushioned and caught him. Gaara got to his feet and threw large quantities of sand at Lee, who was still dealing with the fallout from the technique. Naruto answered, well, this looks like the end. I have to agree with Yami. Kakashi gave a nod. Lee did good, but he is taking the after effects of this technique. No need to worry. Guy responded, the lotus of the leaf blooms twice. Gazing at Guy, Kakashi blinked in disbelief and said, you didn't. That technique is too dangerous for a genin to learn. I'm disappointed in you. Guy looked at Kakashi and said, what do you know of that boy? Guy briefly summarized how Lee worked harder than anyone he knew despite lacking ninjutsu or genjutsu skills, and that by doing so, he gave Lee the potential to become a fantastic shinobi. As he watched Lee stand up and open more gates to battle Gaara, Naruto nodded in agreement. Lee quickly turned red as he moved so quickly that Naruto found it difficult to keep up with his own movements and most of the Jonin could hardly follow him. Lee kicked Gaara into the air, wrapped the teenager in the bandages once more, and started pounding the Suna Genin so hard and quickly that Gaara's defense was completely useless. With a kick and an open palm strike, Lee completed the move, sending Gaara crashing into the ground and creating a sizable crater in the process. Lee appeared to be barely able to stand when he landed, and Naruto knew that he had pushed himself well beyond his breaking point by using those gates. Naruto peered into the crater and saw that it was only Gaara's sand armor inside, and that the real Gaara was emerging from beneath a mound of sand that was rising. Gaara struck with a mad smile, slamming Lee around and then trying to trap him with tendrils of sand. Gaara closed his hand, crushing Lee as he leapt away, only catching his right arm and leg. Gecko yelled, "Winner Gaara!" as he made a move to prevent Gaara from killing Lee. Lee was about to be completely encased by Gaara when Guy leapt to the ground and disturbed the sand, glaring at Gaara to stop him. After a brief moment for the sand armor to encase Gaara, he departed, making his way back up to the stands where Naruto leapt down for the final match, the three-way battle, and Lee was quickly carted off. As the three faced off against one another, Gecko declared, "The final match is the three-way fight between Yami, Yoroi, and Tsurugi." Yoroi and Tsurugi both agreed to defeat Yami first before dealing with one another, saying, "Begin." In a brief but decisive battle, Naruto attacked Yoroi, drew aka Rippa, severed one of Yoroi's legs, took his back, grabbed his head, and twisted it so that his head was now facing his back. As Tsurugi saw his teammate killed, he blinked in shock. However, before he could forfeit, Naruto threw aka Rippa, which pinned him to the wall. Naruto then moved directly in front of him, grabbed his arms, tore them off, and then severed his head. Less than 20 seconds passed between all of this, which was quicker than Gecko could have stopped the match and prevented him from killing the two. When Kankuro noticed how rapidly the blonde with the odd eyes had destroyed the other two plants, he whistled, "Whoa." Gazing fixedly at the blonde covered in blood, Gaara assured the voice whispering to him that it would have its opportunity to murder this enemy. As the medics entered and took the two bodies out, Gecko said, "Winner Yami. Now would the winners please come down here so we can explain what the next round will entail." After a few moments, all 9 of them lined up, and Minato took the stage to explain the upcoming round. Now the finals will take place in 1 month, giving the dignitaries time to arrive and see the matches. You will be seeing who you are up against in a few moments. The matches will be just like these were, with hopefully less death. Minato stopped to give Yami the look that the blonde was just smirking. Now here is the lineup. The first match is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze versus Yami. Second is Hinata Hyuga versus Neji Hyuga. Third is Shino Aburame Varus Konkuro. Fourth is Subaku no Gaara versus Sasuke Uchiha. Temari will then face the winner of that match. You have 1 month to train and prepare for the matches ahead. I wish you all the best of luck. The genin then started to depart, but Minato stopped Naruto so they could speak. I want you to know that I do not approve of needless killing, Minato said. I do not want to see good shinobi dying pointless deaths. They stood against me, they received their fate, replied Naruto. Any that think to oppose me shall perish. Just know this, I am giving the Anbu at the arena next month permission to use deadly force if you do not stop when the proctor calls the match, against you and Subaku no Gaara. Minato issued a warning. I will be informing him of this as well. Naruto turned and walked away, saying, so noted. I'm looking forward to making your daughter bleed in front of your whole village. Minato had to fight the impulse to eliminate this danger to his daughter, and after he had calmed down sufficiently, he left the forest, hoping that things wouldn't go as wrong as he had feared. Soon after, Konan bid her farewell and went back to AIM, and Naruto was walking back into the village from the forest. Naruto made the decision to soak as he was walking and headed for the hot springs. An older man was peering into the woman's side of the spring as he got closer. He approached the man and spoke while shaking his head. This is a quick way to get yourself killed, he said. The man hissed, shish. I'm doing research. Research? Deadpanned Naruto. Yes, research. He responded, I need the inspiration for my books. Naruto shook his head and said, what on earth do you write, Icha Icha? How do you know? He inquired, startled. Naruto blinked in surprise as he gave the man a serious look and realized that he was finally his godfather, the only villager who had ever noticed him. Naruto nodded and started to leave, but Jiraiya grabbed his arm and stopped him. Just a guess. Pleasure to meet you, Jiraiya. He frowned and said, do I know you? You seem familiar. Naruto answered, just a coincidence I guess. As he glanced over the blonde and began to piece together details, Jiraiya said, is that so? Well, care to explain where you got that sword? He asked. In response, Naruto said, I found it. Where? Does it matter? Yes, since it belongs to my former student's wife. Jiraiya replied, and given the fact that the blade was stolen, you were either the thief or you picked it up off a dead body. Would it matter either way? Naruto grinned. The Hokage has already seen me use this blade and hasn't said a word about it. As he gazed at the blonde, Jiraiya nodded and said, that's right. Naruto, you weren't noticed back then. After blinking, Naruto swung a kunai at Jiraiya's throat and asked, how did you know? Jiraiya laughed and said, I guessed. Now are you going to kill me or not? Naruto gave him a fierce look, but ultimately he decided to back off and wait to see how things unfolded. So are you going to tell the village? Why? You were able to get away with not only your mother's sword but your father's precious scroll without anyone noticing for over 24 hours. You seem to have found a new home for yourself in AIM, so I'm content to let you be where you're happy. Jiraiya responded. I see why Konan, Sensei and Nagato, Sensei speak so highly of you, Naruto laughed. Jiraiya yelled, Konan and Nagato are training you. Yeah, and a few other people. Naruto replied, look, I need to take a soak. Why don't you take a break from peeping and join me, we can talk there. Jiraiya nodded, shut the notepad, got up, and walked in with the blonde. Fine. Before long, the two were having a heated argument and talking about various topics. As Jiraiya put it, so what about Yahiko? He died. Hanzo killed him before they accomplished the takeover. Naruto responded, at least that's what Konan, Sensei told me. I see. It's a shame that he died. He was a good kid, they all were. So you became a shinobi over in AIM, huh? Yeah. After I ran away, I made my way kind of randomly and wound up in AIM. Konan. Sensei found me and took me in. They agreed to train me. When I explained to them why I had left, they both agreed to train me. That's great, but tell me, why are you here? Actually, there are two reasons. I wanted to compare myself to people my own age for the exams first. The second is that we owed Orochimaru a favor. Orochimaru? Jiraiya cried out. Yes. But I have my own plans for this, hence the reason I'm telling you all this, Naruto explained. He did some experiments on me at my request, which is why my eyes are like this, and he called in his last favor with us to get me to help him. What plans does he have? Jiraiya inquired. An invasion with Suna's assistance. Naruto clarified, They intend to attack during the finals in a month, and the signal will be Gaara changing into Shukaku. I see. Jiraiya said, nodding. Can you tell me anything else? He intends to destroy the village and murder the Hokage. He has a lot of forces, and he could use the snake summons in conjunction with a crazy demon to attack. However, I plan on throwing a few problems in his way, Naruto said. How? First telling you all of this. Naruto laughed. Second is to deal with Gaara. Jiraiya noted, you realize that I will have to tell Minato all about this. It's okay. Just say that your informants gave it to you, Naruto retorted, and keep me out of it. Jiraiya nodded and said, deal. How about I assist you with something now? What? As Naruto's eyes grew wide, Jiraiya said, the Rasengan. I can teach it to you if you like. Are you serious? I want to learn it, of course. The first step was to make a water balloon pop using your chakra. Naruto watched Jiraiya do it first with great interest, and when it was his turn, he remembered how Jiraiya had made the balloon look and replicated it, sending his chakra in multiple directions inside the balloon and then picking up the speed until it burst. Jiraiya grinned at this, and soon after, they left, and Jiraiya bought the supplies needed to teach the blonde the technique. Not too bad. This step is all about power now that you have the form, Jiraiya said, tossing him a rubber ball while nodding. Naruto nodded and began to do the same thing. After about half an hour, he finally got a hole to pop the ball. A good try, but not nearly enough. Jiraiya responded, you need to make it explode like the water balloon. Eventually, Naruto simply doubled the amount of chakra he was circulating and the ball burst. Naruto grunted as he tried again with a new ball and soon realized that this was going to be difficult as he went through another 10 balls. Jiraiya nodded and said, impressive. You're picking things up more quickly than Naruto did. It took her several days to reach this point. Naruto laughed grimly and said, I guess we now know who the true prodigy is. Avoid becoming arrogant. Now all you have to do is repeat what you did on the last step, but don't make the balloon pop. It's all about control, Jiraiya said, passing him a standard balloon. Mastery? Naruto frowned as he asked. It's a good stun technique that can send a person flying backwards, but there isn't any real harm done to them, Jiraiya said, shrugging as he walked over to a nearby tree and said, this is where you are currently at. He stopped to make a Rasengan in his hand and said, you have the form and the power for it down, but not the control. Jiraiya then rammed the sphere into the tree, creating a massive swirl on the bark. This is how the final product looks. Jiraiya then created another Rasengan and drove it into the tree, tearing the bark off and exposing the underlying wood. If used properly, this one can be deadly. This explains why this ninjutsu has an A rank. After nodding in agreement with Jiraiya's explanation, Naruto picked up the balloon and tried to keep it stationary, but after just 2 seconds it became lumpy and then burst with a huge burst of wind. Naruto scowled as he picked up the next balloon and tried again, increasing it by only 1 second before it happened again. This continued for several hours, during which Jiraiya had already left to conduct additional research while he was still able to, and by the time the old pervert had returned, Naruto was barely able to prevent the sphere from popping. I'd call it quits for today, but it's not too bad, Gaki. Take a nap, eat something, and then resume tomorrow. Jiraiya suggested, you've already expended a lot of chakra. As he put the balloon down, Naruto gasped, you might be right, but I'm getting the hang of it. You are that. Jiraiya nodded and said, here. He then gave Naruto a number of bills and said, go have dinner and come see me here tomorrow. Konan and Nagato have taught you well. We might have a chance to thwart the worst case scenario if I go tell Minato about the impending invasion. Sounds good. Naruto nodded as he left, soon entering the downtown area and heading to a ramen stand. While he was eating, he made sure the cage Bunshin he had been following remained close by in case someone tried to harm him, allowing him to switch places with the clone and then hit the person from behind. After finishing, he headed for the hotel where all the foreign teams were staying when he noticed Dosu and Kin leaving the hospital where Zaku would be. As he passed them, Naruto nodded, Dosu, Kin. Yami. Could we talk to you for a minute? Naruto paused, then nodded and signaled for them to continue walking when Dosu asked. What is it? Naruto inquired. Orochimaru set us up. Kin's voice had a sharp edge. We were sent to kill Sasuke in the forest, but Orochimaru had marked him with the cursed seal, just like his personal guards. Naruto summarized, so you think that you were being used as mere test subjects. He expected us to die in these exams, but we have surprised him, Dosu said, adding, we know it. The issue now is that he will want to use us in a new experiment, just like he will with Zaku. We arrived too late to pick him up. Is it too late? Naruto inquired. Orochimaru already came by as our Jonin instructor and took him out, saying he would take him to Otto for treatment. Kin clarified, "Odds are he'll be coming for us next." "I understand. Moreover, you approached me because..." Naruto rambled. "Avoid being foolish. We are aware that you are the foreign agent that Orochimaru requested as a favor." Dosu shot back, "We need your help. We know that you are strong, hopefully strong enough to beat him in a fight." "And what's in it for me if I do?" Naruto grinned. "What are you looking for?" Kin hesitated before asking. "Your devotion. I will protect you from the snake and ensure that you develop the strength to serve me effectively if you swear your allegiance to me and put an appropriate seal over your hearts that will kill you if you try to betray me," Naruto said calmly. Dosu nodded and said, "Agreed." Kin said, "Fine. Great. Let me put the seals on you if you come." As he led them to his hotel room, Naruto said, "Then I will give you the aid that you need." He had them remove their shirts, and Kin blushed a little as she did, but he was nice enough to let Dosu leave before he started hers. After finishing, he had a special kill seal on both of them, guaranteeing their loyalty. Naruto then took blood from each of them and began the jutsu that Zetsu had shown him. After finishing, he created 2 copies of the 2 former Oto Nin. Copies that would leave behind corpses should they be killed, but lacked souls, making them nothing more than dolls. "These will replace you. Orochimaru would have told you to wait in your room if you hadn't died, but he expected you to." Naruto finished creating 2 seals, placed them on the back of each person's head, and nodded as they were absorbed. "Now you both stay here while I send these 2 to your room to wait for Orochimaru," he explained. "Will he fail to recognize the distinction?" Dosu inquired. "No, this is a distorted version of a technique that only one other person is familiar with. His version is more combat appropriate and far more resilient. The seals I put on them are basic instructions to tell them to move and do what Orochimaru says, but they have limited chakra and won't be able to last longer than 72 hours before they die." Naruto shrugged, adding, "My seals are just good enough to fool assassins and others that a target is actually dead. I will therefore need to watch them until Orochimaru performs the action." As the 2 copies departed, Naruto created a cage bunshin to accompany them and ensure their continued functionality. The 2 exchanged glances. The following day, Naruto and Jiraiya reconnected and carried on working on the Rasengan while discussing various topics. "You're telling me that you receive payment for those books as well as the rights to the movies?" Naruto inquired, utterly taken aback by the smut's high salary. "Yes. I could eat the best food and stay in the best hotels because it pays so well. Hire the youngest whores." Naruto grinned and continued. "Whores are unnecessary. Women flock to me like sakura blossoms in a storm because I am the legendary Jiraiya." Naruto laughed in response and said, "More like run from you." "Hey, do you see anything, Gaki?" Jiraiya inquired, and Naruto blinked while observing the balloon's flawless smoothness. "I did it," Naruto said, blinking. "Yes." Jiraiya explained, "I thought your issue was that you were trying too hard, so I diverted you while your body took care of the rest. Remember that sensation? It's the finished Rasengan. Or, at the very least, its most fully developed form." "Full form?" Naruto inquired. "Yes. Minato continues to play with it. Says he wants to turn it into AS rank technique and add an elemental release to it as well. In my opinion, he's taking on more than he can handle," Jiraiya explained. "It might be impossible to add another high-level step to the technique, which is already lethal enough, especially when combining the peak of elemental manipulation with the peak of chakra manipulation." After nodding and putting the information away for later use, Jiraiya soon said goodbye and left to assist with the defense planning for the village, allowing Naruto to start exploring the training grounds. He soon discovered Hinata training, attempting to finish a technique, and after observing her for a short while, Hinata spoke. She said, "You can come out now, Yami-san." The blonde laughed to himself as he left the tree line and gave her a nod. He grinned and said, "Those are some good eyes you have. I noticed you moving closer a while ago and decided to see what you planned on doing," replied Hinata. "Just seeing how your training is going." Naruto sighed, "Looks like you're having some trouble." "A little." Hinata said, "I am trying to complete a technique that's only passed down verbally through my family, but I just can't get it." Naruto put his sword down and turned to face her, saying, "Well, maybe a spar will lead you in the right direction. Show me what you can do." They continued for a few minutes before Hinata stopped and jumped back before he could hit her. Hinata stared at him before assuming her own fighting stance and trying to strike him with the Jiyuken. Naruto, on the other hand, was much faster than her and easily avoided her attacks by the narrowest of margins, using light strikes to hit the gaps that she left open. She scowled and said, "You're going easy on me." "No, I'm not." Naruto responded, "I'm fighting at Neji's level. I was able to hit you with multiple blows, and you couldn't even land one on me. When you attack, you expose yourself too much. So, should I run or what? Hinata inquired. No, as he retreated in front of her, Naruto responded, fight defensively. Let's go again, this time don't make the attacks just counter mine. When Naruto launched an attack, as Neji would probably do, Hinata was able to track his blows and use her own Jayuken to strike his arms, avoiding the worst blows possible. This time, Naruto stopped the match by bending back to avoid a strike and then taking a step back to indicate that they were done. Hinata nodded as they resumed their fight. Naruto nodded, saying, that was better, however, that is insufficient against Neji. What's preventing you? Hinata calmly answered, nothing is. Naruto just scowled as he turned and picked up his blade before starting to walk away. If you say so. Even though my eyes aren't as unique as yours, they can see a lot of things that yours can't. To find out what was causing a potentially powerful shinobi to hold back so much, Naruto created a cage Bunshin and had it shadow Hinata for the remainder of the day. That night, as he sat in his room with Dosu and Kin already asleep, the clone vanished and the memories arrived. Naruto said, I can see that you are holding yourself back, and that you are scared of facing Neji, and left Hinata to consider his statement before leaving. After following Hinata home, the clone crept into the compound and watched as her father forced her to spar against her younger sister, who attacked her viciously while Hinata refrained from hitting her. After the match ended, her father criticized her poor performance and warned her that she would no longer be the clan's heiress if she lost to Neji in the finals, and that she would be placed in the branch family. The clone continued to watch, and after it had seen enough, it dispelled itself, and Naruto now knew exactly the right buttons to press. The following morning, Naruto felt someone else arrive as he stood on the hotel's roof, watching the storm clouds roll in and grinning at them. Orochimaru said behind him, Naruto. Naruto nodded, Orochimaru. What do you want? I came to inform you that the Auto Nin have been collected, and to thank you for tying up those loose ends with Kabuto's team. Orochimaru gave a nod. Naruto answered, not a problem, they thought they could beat me. As he moved to stand next to Naruto, Orochimaru laughed and said, everything is moving accordingly. Good to know. Naruto smiled, and I finally get to put my mouthy sister in her place, it's going to be a day to remember. Feel free to kill her. Orochimaru laughed, no sense in leaving the demon in a container that could be a threat later. I may or may not. Naruto turned to face Orochimaru and shrugged, saying, we'll see. Anything else? No, that's all. You will be alone here until the invasion, as I will be dealing with the cage, Orochimaru clarified. As he turned to leave, Naruto nodded and said, noted. Now, if you will pardon me, I have things to do. Of course. Orochimaru nodded and departed in a flurry of leaves, but when Naruto returned to his room, Kin and Dosu were still there, staring at him. You're safe for now. Naruto said. Orochimaru has left to work on the next step to his plan. Kin exhaled and said, that's a relief. You know where you have to go, so you're leaving tomorrow. Naruto explained, so lay low for today and when you leave make sure that you use a henge to slip past the guards, especially since Kabuto is still around. Once I am able to, I will send a clone to meet you and give you the scrolls and items I want you to start learning how to use. After turning and heading to the training ground, where Hinata was once again training and honing her Jayuken on a log, Naruto waited for a moment before he spoke, and Dosu nodded, of course. Hinata turned to face him as he said, you're afraid. You fear hurting your family, but you also fear being hurt in return. You fear that cursed seal being applied to you, but you also fear that it will be applied to your sister. Your fear seeps out of you and into the surrounding atmosphere. You are not a true shinobi and you will never defeat Neji. What are you discussing? Hinata inquired. You are hampered by your fear. Your fear has prevented you from developing and becoming strong, Naruto said coolly as he approached. I'm afraid of hurting you when you strike, and I'm afraid of getting hurt when you dodge. It even says, I'm afraid of them getting hurt, when you're protecting someone. If you want to live, you have to get over this fear. When Hinata attempted to speak, Naruto simply continued. You do not wish for your sister to suffer harm, but you also do not wish to suffer harm yourself. In life, there is no safe route. For others to survive, someone has to be harmed. It is a basic reality of life. You try to change that with your cowardice, but the weak end up becoming food for the strong. That's just getting weaker. Get up, Hinata, confront your fear, defeat your adversaries, protect those you love, and do not allow them to harm you. Give up that fear and let your anger take its place. They have no right to attempt to harm you or your beloved people. Release your anger and let it soar to the stars, Naruto let out a roar. Hinata blinked in bewilderment as she felt Naruto's words hit her deep inside, knowing that he was telling the truth, but she didn't want to hurt Hanabi or Neji, but she also didn't want to be hurt by her family. She tried to find a way to avoid looking into those demonic eyes, but they caught her gaze, and she saw how weak she looked at the moment. She hated it, hated that she looked so pathetic in his eyes, hated that she knew this was how her family saw her, and felt the anger and rage at her actions rising up. Hinata screamed in a wordless howl, just as the storm broke, and Naruto only grinned as he finally broke her, his plan going so well. He stepped directly in front of her, placed a hand on her shoulder, and maintained eye contact with hers. Have strength. Don't allow people who would stop you from moving forward. Don't allow your fear to resurface. It's okay to feel afraid, but don't allow it to rule you. Embrace your fears. Get up and beat Neji if you don't want to end up trapped the way he is. Prove that you are more powerful than both your sister and him. Be a Shinigami if you have to, but never allow yourself to become weak, Naruto said, revealing his teeth and tearing out the throats of those who would hurt him. Hinata felt as though she had known him from somewhere, but as his words smashed into her mind, she saw the truth in them, realized that he had followed a similar path and was working to ensure that she did too, to free her and make her a stronger person. Tears began to well up in her eyes, but they were lost in the flood that had swept them away. She muttered, "I'm scared," he said, "don't let it control you. I don't know if this is right, we never do. What if I hurt someone I love?" Naruto calmly answered, "They do not love you if they would try to stop you. But, don't be shy. Act like a predator. Be fierce and powerful. Be the real Hinata Hyuga," hissed Naruto. "Be a creature that no one fears." As she gazed at him, Hinata sensed the unadulterated strength emanating from him and drew it within herself. She came to the realization that she aspired to be like this man, strong and self-assured, free from the chains her fear and family had placed around her, able to be a powerful shinobi without any limitations. "Show me," Naruto snarled, "show me your true strength." When Hinata struck, she had no idea what she was doing, but she tried desperately to hit this man who seemed to encourage her. Naruto dodged her blows and returned his own, but Hinata would not allow anything to hit her because her arms moved on their own. She showed her that she could be a strong woman by avoiding his every move while he dodged hers, demonstrating to her that she was capable of being a strong woman. For almost 15 minutes, while the rain continued to pour and the lightning flashed, they were locked in this intricate dance until they stopped, facing each other, and Hinata began to laugh. "This is what strength feels like," she chuckled. "This is only the tip of the iceberg, my dear Hinata-chan." Naruto laughed. "But this is the first step. What must I do in order to get the rest?" she smiled as she asked. "The next step is to defeat Neji," Naruto said, adding, "Be patient. Train hard, grow stronger and stronger," Hinata said, nodding as Naruto turned and began to walk away. "After that, we will discuss what you can do to become the true shinobi you were meant to be. If you can, get on my level and stand by my side. If not, revert to the depths of despair from which you have crawled. You have a choice, but I don't want the weak to support me." After giving him a simple nod, Hinata headed home determined to live up to his expectations of Harry Yuro, a man who would challenge her to be more than she believed she was capable of being. As the finals day drew near, Naruto could only smile at what was going to happen. He would have the opportunity to demonstrate his sister's weakness today, determine whether Hinata was deserving of his support, and serve as a reminder to this village that it was no longer the strongest in the world. He left the hotel in a matter of seconds, making his way through the streets and into the arena, where he discovered that only the Suna siblings were present. All three of them appeared intent on the event that was about to take place. When Tamari saw him, she nodded and asked, "Yami, is everything ready?" Leaning on the railing with a view of the arena floor, Naruto calmly responded, "I haven't been told anything is amiss. You all know what to do, just play it safe and stay together and you'll be fine." Neji entered, glared at the four, and then sat down while the other competitors showed up before anything more could be said. With her jacket open and her shyness gone, Hinata entered after Neji. She gave Yami a smile and stood next to him, indicating that this was where she would be by the end of the tests. Shino was the next to enter, and after giving Hinata a nod, he sat down as well, appearing to get ready for his fight. After a month of training, Sasuke and Naruto finally entered the room, both of them exuding confidence. Naruto was eager to see how Sasuke had changed in case he could be useful in the future. Naruto gave Yami a fierce look, aware that they were first and that she was eager to put that arrogant fool in his place. She dismissed Minato's warning that he was dangerous as an example of her overly protective father. "I mean, I'm the strongest genin of our generation. There's no way that some no-name shinobi from some piss-poor country can beat me," she thought to herself. Soon after, they were all summoned to the matches, and Naruto glanced up at the cage box to see Minato sitting there with Kushina to his right and Orochimaru, disguised as the cage, to his left. After that, Minato spoke briefly about how honorable it was to have such wonderful genin participating and how they should all feel proud of themselves for reaching this point. When he was done, the exam proctor came forward to announce the first match. For the first time in a long time, Naruto and Naruto faced one another as the others departed. Naruto recalled how his sister had consistently prevailed in their sparring sessions at the academy. He was now eager to crush her and force his parents to witness the destruction of their favorite child. "Begin!" yelled the proctor. As they walked around one another, Naruto laughed and said, "You should just give up." With his own smile, Naruto questioned, "Why would I do that?" "You don't stand a chance against me." Grasping the hilt of his sword, Naruto responded, "I beg to differ. I could have killed you 5 different ways while we talked." Naruto scowled as she looked at him, anticipating that he would draw and hit so that she could use the kunai defense her mother had taught her to counter it, but Naruto didn't. He appeared in front of her, his fist buried in her stomach as he lifted her off the ground, and then he vanished from view. He twisted and kicked her, sending her flying across the arena and crashing into one of the walls before she could recover. What had just transpired left Minato and Kushina speechless. They had increased Naruto's training to deal with this, even though they knew the shinobi was a fierce rival. The girl had been sent flying in the blink of an eye by this unidentified shinobi. The most unsettling thing was that he was now looking at them with the expression, "I hope you're watching." When Naruto turned around, he saw that Naruto had gotten back up and was launching a barrage of shuriken at him. He decided to flaunt himself a little by drawing aka Rippa. An unearthly howl began to emanate from the blade as he channeled his chakra down it, and Kushina's eyes widened when she realized what he was doing. As he swung the blade infused with all 5 chakra affinities at the swarm of weapons, Naruto roared, "Gura! Ta Seishin Ken, Greater Spirit Sword!" A blast of pure destruction erupted, destroying the weapons and crashing into the wall that Naruto had been near, shocking the onlookers. Knowing that she was at a disadvantage as long as he had that blade, Naruto had been wise enough to move when she saw what he had just done. The fact that he could use that technique was what startled her the most. In order to activate the Gura, Ta Seishin Ken, a shinobi must have at least a slight affinity for each element, according to her mother, and the strongest affinities are needed to use it, as Yami just did. Naruto yelled at his sister, "What's the matter?" Scared, and watched her become agitated. He simply grinned and said, "If you won't come to me, then I'll come to you." Only a handful of the Jonin could keep up with Naruto's sprint, and as he crossed the distance, they saw that he had Naruto completely outmatched. He swung the howling blade at his sister, who attempted to block the attack and disarm him with 2 kunai, but she didn't realize her error until it was nearly too late. The Gura, Ta Seishin Ken improved the blade to the point where it was nearly unstoppable in addition to producing a blast of pure destruction. The fire chakra would cauterize any wound, making it more difficult to heal. The water and lightning chakras would combine to paralyze the target, and the wind chakra would strengthen the edge to cut through anything. The earth chakra would also increase the blade's density to prevent it from breaking. With this weapon, Naruto had Naruto at a complete disadvantage. When aka Rippa struck the kunai held for a brief moment before the blade began slicing through them, startling Naruto, who leapt away as the blade completed its arc and made a flawless slash into the ground. Naruto laughed and swung a sideways slash, forcing Naruto to fall to the ground to escape the blast of destruction. Too slow. Naruto was able to attack from a distance and control his zone with this technique, which made Naruto try to come up with a strategy, but she soon realized that she couldn't win as long as he was using it. Naruto merely grinned as he sheathed his blade and ceased directing chakra into it, then approached Naruto, who appeared perplexed, slowly. "I vowed to myself when I found out that I was facing you first, that I would destroy you in every sense of the word. I've just proved my superiority in both ninjutsu and kenjutsu in that one moment. And I should warn you, while I can't make a genjutsu that wouldn't trap everyone in this arena with you, I am immune to them myself. That only leave taijutsu." Naruto giggled as Naruto stared at him before looking for an opening. As though they were just flies buzzing around him, Naruto only deflected her blows. Before he could launch his vicious attack on the girl, he quickly started to press the attack and pushed Naruto back. It began by avoiding her left hook, passing beneath her arm, and landing 3 quick blows on her ribs. He delivered a rising kick that caught her chin as she twisted in agony to grab that side. She flew straight up as he leapt up after her, landing another round of punches on her exposed stomach before landing a flip kick to knock her back to the ground. Naruto moved into her gaps and pressed the advantage, beating her until she was a bloody mess once they were on the ground and Naruto was standing unsteadily. Knowing that the proctor would probably call the match in his favor, Naruto paused when she fell to the ground and then turned to leave. Unexpectedly, he felt her gather chakra and turned to see her preparing to strike him with a Rasengan. He dodged the attack by crouching and twisting, then he got up and grabbed the arm that held the Rasengan by the wrist and elbow. With a sickening crunch, he brought up his knee and broke her arm. When Naruto noticed that she was preparing to hit him with another Rasengan in her other hand, he said, "You're finished." Naruto turned, holding onto the wrist of her right arm as he took her back. He then grabbed her other arm and pulled her legs out from under her, bringing her to her knees. He shouted while pulling her arms behind her and putting a foot on her back. "Call the match or I will rip her arms off," he yelled. The proctor acknowledged that Yami would carry out the threat, but he blinked. He exclaimed, "Winner Yami," as the red-eyed blonde merely kicked Naruto into the ground and proceeded to the viewing box. Incredulous at what had happened to her daughter, Kushina muttered, "Naruto. That was horrible." Minato exclaimed, "I should have known he would have done something like this. It could have been worse." Kazekage added, "I read the details of the preliminaries and he could have killed your daughter easily enough." Minato nodded, "True." Shortly after, Neji and Hinata faced each other as they entered the arena, with Neji feeling a little uneasy about Hinata's transformation. Hinata, on the other hand, was displaying unwavering confidence because she knew that if she wanted to get stronger and prove herself to Yami and to herself, she couldn't fail. Neji was about to verbally abuse Hinata when the proctor started the match, but she charged in before he could do so and shocked him with multiple strikes. He leapt back and glared at Hinata, who smirked and chose to engage in mental manipulation of her own. "Odd," she said with a scowl. "You once asked me while we sparred why I moved away. Should I ask you the same thing? Why did you flee just there?" Neji's expression was filled with rage, and he charged in with the intention of hitting her with the Jayuken. However, Hinata moved like water, recalling the downpour in which she had battled Yami, and applied those maneuvers to her fight here. She ducked under the attacks and dodged them by the narrowest of margins, launching her own attacks into the gaps and hitting a variety of targets but failing to hit his arms, which were the targets she truly wanted to hit. Following a brief period of back and forth, they both took a few steps back to catch their breath. "You are still a failure," Neji yelled, "so you managed to make some small strikes on me, it won't change anything." "Won't it?" replied Hinata. "Not so long ago I couldn't even strike you, now I have managed to hit you 10 times and you have yet to strike me." At this statement, Neji's anger erupted, and he charged in once more in an attempt to quiet this bother who believed she was above him. Hinata merely allowed his anger to overcome him, allowing him to break himself on her defense. After a few moments, Neji finally composed himself and understood that Hinata had closed far too many Tenketsu points for him to keep fighting in this manner. He repositioned himself and gave the girl a sly smile. He smiled and said, "You're in my divinitation." Hinata blinked in surprise that he was aware of this tactic and that she couldn't avoid it. After all of her Tenketsu points were closed, Hinata was on the ground coughing up blood despite the vicious and violent strikes. She stumbled to her feet and glared at Neji, who seemed to think he now had the upper hand. He boasted, "You're finished. I have closed all of your Tenketsu points, there is no way you can use the gentle fist anymore." Right before Hinata entered his zone, the girl stood over him, slammed her fist across his face, and sent him sprawling onto the ground. She continued to slam him repeatedly until he was barely conscious, at which point she moved back, grateful for the extra sparring sessions that Yami had given her. Since she couldn't always rely on this style, he had taught her how to fight without the gentle fist, and he said that learning a different style would make her even more formidable. Hinata spat as she kicked him across the field, allowing him to attempt to stand despite his concussion, broken nose, and swollen eye. "Your arrogance will be your downfall, Neji.ni.san." He literally spat out a glob of blood as he said, "Pathetic. Can't even beat me without fighting like some gutter wench." As Neji got ready to murder this annoying brat, Hinata smirked and said, "And yet you are the one losing here." Hinata swept his legs out from under him as he charged in again, bringing up her leg and kicking in his tumbling midsection before slamming a double hammer fist into his back, which was supported by her knee. They could hear the crack as she caused damage to his spine. As she moved away, Hinata glanced at her father, who had a disapproving expression on his face, and the proctor, who quickly declared the match in her favor. She then turned to face Yami, who gave her a nod and a tiny smile, indicating that she had succeeded in demonstrating her potential to him. The proctor called for Shino and Kankuro to descend after the medics had removed Neji from the battlefield, but the puppet user yelled that he had forfeited. The proctor scowled and summoned Sasuke and Gaara, who then entered the arena. In order to give himself a chance to take on the real challenge of the day, Yami, Sasuke had trained until he vomited blood this past month in order to defeat Gaara. The proctor yelled, "Begin!" as Sasuke launched several shuriken at Gaara, who allowed his sand to block them before he did something startling and caused the sand to rise up and become a copy of him. Sasuke then threw the shuriken back at him, who easily avoided the weapons because he had his Sharingan activated and ready to defeat this threat. He charged in, shocking Gaara by being as fast as Lee and slipping past the sand shield. He managed to kick the teen a couple of times, shocking him, and then he sent waves of sand at Sasuke, forcing him back while glaring at the Sunanin. Before long, Gaara's face was stretched with a smile as the sand formed a dome around him, with an eye peeking over it to observe the events outside. Sasuke scowled as he charged in and attempted to punch through the barrier, only to discover that it was not only more powerful than he had anticipated, but that it also threw enormous spikes at anyone who attempted to attack it. After barely avoiding the spikes, Sasuke swore when he realized that if he wanted to win this battle, he would have to show his ace in the hole. He held the completed technique after flashing through a few hand signs while moving back. As he ran towards the barrier, he yelled, "Chidori!" His Sharingan allowed him to dodge the spikes as they emerged, and he stabbed the barrier, punching through it and jumping back as a monstrous arm yelled after him. He was startled to see a rippling inside the sphere. Gaara screamed, "This is blood! My blood!" as the dome fell and he clutched his injured shoulder. With a sly smile, Naruto looked up to see that Temari and Kankuro had descended to retrieve their brother before more harm could be done to him, and that a flare had gone up. As soon as the invasion started and Naruto could start doing as he was really told, he began to laugh. He was on the roof with Orochimaru holding Kushina at the point of a kunai as his two guards turned into four and formed a strong barrier that kept the Anbu unit back and shielded them from Minato and Kushina. Minato muttered a curse for not seeing that Orochimaru had replaced the cage. Orochimaru laughed as he shoved Kushina to Minato and stood there beaming, saying, "I must admit that this went far smoother than I thought." Minato pointed to the toads occupied by his snake summons and said, "It won't go as smoothly as you think." After glancing and scowling, Orochimaru turned his full attention to Minato and his spouse. As Orochimaru put his hands on the ground and 3 coffins a euro, marked 1, 2, and 3 a euro, rose to the surface, he responded, "It doesn't matter if Jiraiya manages to stop them. There is no one that can save you, especially since you can't hear Ishin out of this barrier. Now let's see how you fare against your predecessors." Without a word, the 3 coffins opened, revealing the bodies of the Shodai, Naidame, and Sandaime Hokages. The first 2 Hokages just vanished as they left, and Orochimaru blinked in surprise. "Looks like it didn't go quite as well as you thought." Kushina laughed. "One Edo Tensei against the 2 of us is simple enough." This caused Orochimaru to mentally panic since he had no idea what had happened to the ones he had placed Dosu and Kin in. Putting those thoughts aside, he turned to face his former sensei and noticed that he was sadly staring at Minato. According to Tobi, "I'm sorry Minato, it looks like I will have to fight against you today." "It's alright Tobi," Minato replied, "I'll be sure to make this quick." "It won't matter if you do. The village is doomed." Orochimaru replied, "Besides you couldn't even keep your family together, what chance do you have of keeping this village safe?" Kushina yelled, "Shut your mouth." As he observed the suffering and agony in Minato and Kushina's eyes, Tobi questioned, "What is he talking about?" "Oh, this is amusing. The legendary Yodem Hokage neglected his son in favor of his Jinchuruki daughter." Orochimaru chuckled. "The boy ran away after stealing their most precious items. A boy after my own heart." After examining the 2 closely and noticing the guilt, Tobi questioned, "Is this true?" "Why Minato? Why?" "I made a mistake." Minato murmured, "I have searched for him for the last 10 years but I can't find him." "Because he went where you could not follow." Orochimaru chuckled, "And he is hellbent on getting revenge." "You lie," yelled Kushina. "Do I? I have seen the boy, and I must admit that he has become a force to be reckoned with." Orochimaru responded, "He's a powerful shinobi now, one that would have turned the tides of this invasion in your favor if you had been smart enough to pay attention to him." Tobi started, "Minato." Looking at Orochimaru, Minato said, "I know. Where is he?" he asked. "Last time I saw him was in AIM." Orochimaru replied, "And he had such eyes filled with hate and anger that I couldn't resist helping him. And who knows, he might make for a promising vessel one day." As Kushina put it, "So he's not with you?" "No, unfortunately not. He enjoys independence." Orochimaru replied, "But he would gladly help me if I asked, since I helped him get so strong." Kushina could see that Minato was angry, but he was trying to hide it by maintaining a composed expression. Without saying anything, He launched a kunai at Orochimaru, who easily sidestepped it and hurled one with a seal into Sarutobi's head, completing the transformation into an unstoppable killing machine. While Kushina repelled Sarutobi, who had called forth his legendary partner Enma and transformed him into a staff, with a simple katana, Minato merely swore as he unsealed a katana for Kushina and then twisted to the kunai behind Orochimaru. The traitor only laughed as he ducked the attacks. The two fights continued back and forth until Minato stopped fighting Orochimaru. He then Hiri-shined to the distracted Sarutobi and sent a kunai into his back, stopping him while he nodded for Kushina to shield him while he sealed. He then rammed a Rasengan into his head. He quickly applied the proper seal to his predecessor, enclosing him in a tight bundle that only he could open as he confronted Orochimaru, who had attracted Kusanagi and was easily holding Kushina at bay. During this time, Minato looked around the village and saw the enemy in the stands, along with the different shinobi who had escaped the genjutsu. The genin and shunin were covering the villagers as they were being swiftly evacuated, and the jonin were fighting off the enemy who were attempting to pursue them. He could see Jiraiya on one of his toads as he repelled the numerous snake summons, and the clan leaders were in top form as they also defeated the enemy. He stopped nodding his head when he noticed a huge tanuki in the forest and recognized him as Gaara, who had changed. Shaking his head at the anxious thoughts that had been on his mind, he returned his attention to Orochimaru and realized that he would have to deal with this madman in order to escape. Naruto was amused to see Sasuke pursuing Gaara and his siblings in the forest, followed by another group of genin. The Avengers were being pursued by Sakura, Shikamaru, and Shino. Shino halted to deal with Kankuro's attempt to attack them, while Shikamaru dropped back to deal with a platoon of Auto Shinobi. Sakura eventually overtook Sasuke, who had confronted Gaara and Temari. As Gaara began to change and had the brilliant idea to move out of his way as she leapt away, Temari appeared concerned. As Sasuke and Gaara faced one another, Sakura realized she should follow the other girl's example and stepped aside. Naruto knew the outcome of the quick battle before the first blow was delivered. Sasuke began with a fire jutsu, and Gaara, in his changed form, blocked the blow with his Biju arm before launching a flurry of sand shurikens at him, who sidestepped them and then launched another attack. After a few minutes of back and forth, Sasuke used his Chidori to strike Gaara, injuring him once more. However, in his crazed state, he was too stunned to notice, smashing Sasuke into a tree with his changed arm. With a sigh, Naruto leapt to his feet and interrupted Gaara before he could kill Sasuke. Naruto eyed the insane Jinchuriki and merely grinned, deciding that it would be far more advantageous to leave him alive so he could be useful later rather than kill him right away. Sorry, but I can't let you kill him. Naruto smirked as he flipped his arm over and drew his sword, slicing through the appendage with ease, shocking Gaara, who howled in pain as he reattached the arm. "You? Mother wants your blood," he yelled as his arm shot towards him. He began to change even more as he put the arm back on, and before long, only his legs remained of his former self. As he ducked around Gaara's arms and tail, Naruto remarked, "You've gone quite insane it seems. But then again, having a demon that doesn't let you sleep can do that to you." "Shut up," Gaara yelled as he hit the ball once more. "You see, in the end you can't beat me, because I have put much more into getting stronger than you. You rely on that demon instead of putting it in its place," Naruto asked, bouncing off a tree that was soon destroyed by the raging demon. "Why, am I touching a nerve?" Gaara yelled, "Silence," as he struck once more. Naruto continued, weaving around the attacks, already aware of his weakness but relishing the tormenting of the young man. "You're only mad because I'm telling you the truth. What's the matter, too weak to even suppress a single demon? You'll never be strong if you don't learn to control that massive power of yours." Gaara roared, "Die," and struck with all three of his limbs, making it extremely risky for Naruto to avoid being hit. Naruto merely grinned as he did the one thing Gaara hadn't anticipated, charging him and landing squarely in his face. He encased his hand in lightning chakra and struck his face with it, causing him to jolt and skid back. Before his tail could retract, Naruto took his back and sealed the bottom side of it. Naruto saw the limbs retract as he leapt higher up, made a single seal, and then grinned as the explosive tag detonated, destroying the sand body Gaara had been constructing. Gaara gave him a death glare before creating a seal and all the sand wrapped around him. Naruto said, "You have much potential Gaara no Subaku, but until you master that demon's powers you will never best me." Before long, he was growing to a huge height, and Naruto realized that he was changing into his full Biju form. As he began flashing through the hand signs for the jutsu that Kakuzu had demonstrated to him to use against Biju in this manner, Naruto, grinning, leapt back from the giant foot and made a clone to get Sasuke out of the line of fire. The weather began to change, and a funnel cloud began to form over Gaara before a blast of pure wind and destruction smashed down into the unwary Jinchuruki, smashing him into the ground and applying more pressure until Gaara was nearly unconscious. Naruto roared, "Futon! Arashi! Shin no Ken! Fist of the Storm God," as he finished the jutsu and felt the drain on his chakra, almost taking everything he had. And the sand had vanished entirely, as he jumped down to Gaara and approached the red-haired boy who was barely alive. Naruto laughed and swallowed a soldier pill to maintain his strength. Naruto looked at the teenager who was staring at him fearfully and said, "Learn to master your demon and come find me then. I will help you reach the greatness that you so deserve. Let this show you Gaara no Subaku. You have much to learn and greater heights to reach." Who are you?" Gaara exclaimed at that. "I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the prodigal son of the Yodem Hokage, and I will bring this world to a new age," Naruto said, leaning down and whispering in Gaara's ear. He saw Sasuke standing close to the blast zone's edge, staring at him, and grinned as he got up and left. "According to Sasuke, you are no genin." Naruto nodded and said, "I was hired to keep you safe, so I'm not." "By who?" "Orochimaru. I owed him a favor and he wanted me in this exam to make sure that you didn't bite off more than you could chew." Naruto sighed. "And how will he take you betraying him like that?" "Not well, but he can't do jack shit about it. I am just as strong as he is, and he well knows it." Naruto replied with an angry grin. "And as for you, my young Uchiha, you still have a lot of growing to do if you want to kill Itachi." "How do you know my brother?" yelled Sasuke, who was trying to stand but was unable to do so at this moment. "I met him during my travels. I have seen his strength, and you are far from his level. Allow me to give you some advice. The village fears that cursed seal upon your neck, as well they should. While it does leech your chakra, it is also capable of making you far stronger than you normally would be, as I am sure that you have noticed. Learn how to utilize this power and you will grow even stronger." "But Kakashi Sensei said that if I grow dependent on it I would fail," Sasuke recalled. "Only if you just use the cursed seal. There is a balance that must be reached if you want to use its power with minimal drawbacks. Learn that balance and I am sure that you could grow even more powerful than you could even imagine." Naruto laughed. Sasuke inquired, "And how would you know?" "Because Orochimaru's experiments have helped me grow as well. I let him experiment on me when I was a child and it allowed me to unlock my latent potential. That is one of the reasons as to why I am so much stronger than you." Sasuke sniped, "And the other reasons? I have trained until I couldn't even move for 10 years, plus plenty of experiments were conducted on me. I am not foolish enough to say that I am the strongest shinobi in the world, but I am one of the most deadly shinobi to be born in a very long time." Naruto laughed as he began to leave. "Grow stronger, Sasuke Uchiha. Grow stronger and I may come find you again one day to have you stand beside me as I change this world to fit my image. And I promise you that if you do, I will help you kill your brother and help you learn the truth behind the Uchiha massacre." When Sasuke turned to face the blonde, he exclaimed, "What?" But there was no sign of him. Orochimaru discovered that Naruto had betrayed him and that his plan had been thwarted on top of the cage viewing box. Without any preparation, no one else could have performed such a feat of S-rank jutsu. He was now forced to fight a cage-level shinobi and his nearly equally powerful wife. He ordered his bodyguards to drop the barrier as they ran, allowing the clones to divert the shinobi's attention as they swiftly left the village, and he leapt away, creating several dozen Tsuchi Bunshin. Minato saw that the enemy Jinchuruki had been defeated and scowled at Orochimaru's retreat. With a sigh, Minato looked around the village and noticed that the enemy was generally retreating. As he came up from the opposite side of the viewing box, an Anbu agent exclaimed, "Lord Hokage! The enemy is falling back, and somehow Gaara no Subaku has been defeated." Minato questioned, "Do we know who did it?" "No, we had reports that Sasuke Uchiha pursued him and his siblings out into the forest, and Kakashi had Shikamaru Nara, Shino Aburame and Sakura Haruno pursue him. We have sent Anbu to pick them up and so far we have found Shikamaru and his sensei Asumaseru Tobi with several captured Ado Nin, and Shibi Aburame has found his son and is treating the poison that he had been exposed to." The agent from Anbu clarified. "I see. What of Yami? I don't see him amongst the fighting," Minato replied. "He seems to have disappeared, sir," was the response, and Minato felt uneasy about the whole thing. He quickly headed for the different locations where enemy shinobi were still engaged in combat and helped to defeat them, shaking his head. Several dozen shinobi and a few civilians who had failed to reach the shelters in time were lost by the end of the day in Konoha. Suna was suing for peace after losing almost half of their invading force. They claimed that Orochimaru had killed the real Yodhya Kazekage and replaced him, forcing them to go to war. The red-headed Jinchuruki was now trying to subdue Shukaku, something none of his predecessors had ever tried, after Gaara and his siblings had escaped back to the village. 2/3 of Oto's shinobi were dead, but many were taken prisoner so they could be questioned. Now that the sun had set, Naruto stood atop the Hokage monument once more, deciding it was time to start his plan. He had planted the seeds of darkness in Hinata, Sasuke, and Gaara, and he now had followers who would obey him. Gaara's siblings would probably follow. It was beginning to go exactly as he had envisioned. Naruto pondered as he left, making his way to Aim, and with the end of an age shall come a much darker night. With the setting sun comes the end of an age. Naruto came back to Aim feeling exceptionally happy. When he arrived in the country, he saw Konan waiting for him, carrying the body of Diva. After approaching them, Naruto nodded and said, "Konan, Sensei, Nagato, Sensei. We received word about what occurred during the Chunin exams." Konan laughed. "We heard you managed to defeat the Ichibi." "Yeah, but it was almost too much. I showed off too much against Naruto," he said. "That is all that matters," Nagato retorted, "you learn from your mistake." "Where's Tobi?" Naruto asked after nodding. After Naruto nodded, Konan said, "Where he usually is." Naruto then entered the village. Naruto rested for the remainder of the day before going in search of his friend the following day. After some time spent navigating the secret passageways beneath Aim, he eventually located Tobi sitting at a desk reviewing his plans. Naruto entered the room and said, "Tobi." "Ah, Naruto-kun." Tobi laughed. "I read the report about the Chunin exams, well done indeed." Naruto sat at the other chair beside the desk and nodded, saying, "I thought so too." "So did you put your sister in her place?" Naruto smiled and said, "Oh yeah. Probably shattered her confidence too." Tobi laughed and said, "Excellent." Naruto inquired, "So how are your plans coming?" "Moving along nicely. We should be ready to start capturing the Jinchuruki in a few months," Tobi clarified. "And then we can cast the Genjutsu and end this farce we call reality." As he got up and put a hand on Toba's shoulder, Naruto nodded and said, "I still owe you for getting me out of Konoha." "No you don't," Tobi replied, "you paid that off by becoming so strong." As a smirk appeared on Naruto's face and a poisoned kunai entered the hand he had taken from Toba's shoulder, he said, "Oh?" Tobi recognized Naruto's betrayal after Naruto stabbed him with it before the masked nin could become intangible. Before the poison blocked his airway, he started, "You. Me." Naruto said with a nod. "You see, I don't like your plan. A genjutsu reflected off of the moon. That is crazy. I prefer my plan. I intend to rule this world, and for that I can't have you getting in my way. But don't worry, I won't let all of you die. I'll take that Sharingan of yours that I have seen through that mask you wear." He leaned down, took off Toba's mask, and looked directly into the eyes of the young man who had been of such assistance to him. Naruto reached down and removed his eye, then put it in a jar he had made for the occasion. He got up and grinned at Tobi because his only friend had passed away in front of him. After setting the body on fire while flashing hand signs, he left, making his way through the catacombs to the hidden exit that Tobi had shown him and out into the world. He hired a medic nin to perform the surgery, but it took him several hours to get there. The man repeated, "Are you sure? If you ask me one more time I will kill you once this is done." Naruto rasped. The man merely gave a nod before taking out Naruto's right eye and replacing it with Toba's. He allowed Naruto to take off the bandage after the surgery was finished, and the blonde blinked as he went to the mirror to see that the first experiment had defeated the constant Sharingan and caused his eyes to turn the usual shade of red and black. He frowned, but when he directed chakra toward his eye, the Sharingan materialized and the frown vanished. The man said, "Now about my payment." Naruto turned and stabbed him in the throat after nodding. Naruto nodded and said, "There it is. Keep the change." After taking care of that, Naruto went back to the Akatsuki base and hurried to find Nagato's actual body. He approached the disabled man and tapped his shoulder as soon as he entered the room. He yelled, "Naruto!" Upon seeing him, Naruto turned to face his sensei and said, "I came to tell you that Tobi is gone." Nagato frowned and said, "Gone?" "Yes. He intended to betray you. He didn't have the same goals as you did, so I got rid of him. You go ahead and complete your plan." Naruto grinned. Nagato questioned, "But how do you know for certain?" "Tobi couldn't keep secrets from me." Naruto sighed. "Now if you will excuse me, I'll be leaving as well." "Where will you go?" "To build a place for myself. I have remained idle far too long." Naruto replied, "Until we meet again, Nagato. Sensei." Before long, Naruto was leaving Aim for the safe house he had constructed in Hai no Kuni, where his supporters would be waiting for him. The pair was working diligently to learn the jutsus he had given them when he entered the base. In addition to sound and wind-based ninjutsu, Kin was practicing a variety of genjutsu. Although her chakra wasn't very high, she had perfect control, which allowed her to temporarily handle ninjutsu up to B rank. Dosu was given 2 new sound weapons in addition to what Naruto referred to as a sonic dagger, which, when it made contact with an opponent, sent waves of sound through them, disorientating them. It was also a weapon that would be nearly impossible to avoid because it was made entirely of sound, much like wind-enhanced weapons. Naruto walked in and asked, "How goes it?" Dosu nodded and said, "We are doing well, my lord. Yes, I have mastered 3 of the genjutsus that you left me, as well as 2 of the wind ninjutsu and 3 of the sound." Kin continued. "Good." Naruto smiled. "I am going to be doing some research in the other room. In a few days we are going to begin executing my master plan." As they went about their work, the 2 nodded, "Yes sir." Naruto nodded at what he was discovering and quickly became absorbed in his work. There were many countries in which he could establish his empire, but one stood out to him. The industrialist Gato, who had purchased the country's daimyo and was taxing the villagers to the point where they were barely surviving, was the cause of the downfall of Nami no Kuni, a small island nation. This one was particularly noticeable because Konoha had rejected their request for assistance. It seems that Tazuna, an elderly bridge builder, had approached them to hire shinobi but had only enough for a C-rank mission and had made up the difficulty. When the team learned, they immediately returned. Nami no Kuni was placed on a blacklist, and they declined to assist the tiny country. After reviewing the remaining details, Naruto nodded, thinking it would be a sweet irony to make this country the first part of his kingdom. Naruto was already making plans on how to take control of this country when the 3 shinobi set out for Nami no Kuni the following morning. He was aware of Gato's army and the 4 shinobi he had hired as personal bodyguards, but he wasn't overly worried about how dangerous they would be in comparison to him and his 2 servants. When they finally got there, it was getting late, so Naruto had them spend the night in the woods before starting their rebellion the following day. Naruto arrived at the late Tazuna's house at dawn and knocked on the door. With his skeleton still dangling from the unfinished bridge, Tazuna had been killed after he had returned and refused to stop construction. A young woman was standing there when the door opened, staring at him with unadulterated terror. "Yes?" she inquired. "If I may, I would like to speak to you inside," Naruto said quietly. "I promise you that I have nothing to do with Gato." The woman appeared to relax a little after this, and she allowed him to enter the kitchen, where Naruto sat while she nursed a cup of tea. Naruto recognized Inari, Tazuna's grandson, when a young man sat down with the woman a short while later. "I will be blunt. I am here to remove Gato from power," Naruto said, with his eyes widening. "I know you may think that this is impossible, but I will have you know that I am as strong if not stronger than the Hokage of Konohagakure." Inari spat. "Did they send you?" "Hardly. I have no love for that village. I came here to remove a scumbag from power and set this nation free." "What do you really want?" Inari yelled. "I know you aren't doing this because you're a good guy. There are no good guys. I can understand why you'd think that, and it is true that I want something. What I want is to unite the world under a single banner, and I will start that here. I will remove Gato and the corrupt daimyo from power, and in exchange I will rule this land. You will find my rule far less harsh than Gato's," replied Naruto. Inari spit out, "I doubt it. Well, it is either the devil you know that is slowly killing you, or the devil you don't that is promising a better life, plus the bridge being completed and revenge on Gato." Naruto giggled when he saw Inari get excited. "I will personally bring him to you to remove his head, right on the completed bridge." "That won't be possible. Gato will kill anyone that he sees going to work on the bridge," the tsunami warned. "I and my 2 associates will deal with that," Naruto replied with a grin. "So what do you say? The promise for freedom under my rule, and you get to complete the bridge that Tazuna started, plus getting to kill Gato yourself. It is a very good deal." The words, "We aren't the only ones that you have to convince." Tsunami and Inari exchanged glances before saying, "We will have a town meeting, and you can make your offer there. If they accept, then we will do as you ask." Naruto got up and grinned, saying, "Deal. Tell me the time and location of this meeting, and I'll be there." He then turned to leave and went back to camp. Naruto discovered a notice about the town meeting the following day and grinned when he realized it was a cunning ploy to ensure that you wouldn't know where to go unless you knew the cipher. However, Naruto had already seen Kakuzu's ciphers and knew exactly where they would be. When Naruto reached the meeting spot that evening, he extended his offer once more, this time to the entire Nami no Kuni community. This was initially greeted with contempt, but after a while, Naruto received the one question he had been waiting for. "Why us?" To put it simply, you were a nation that could use liberating, and because Konoha turned you down. I want this place to become a thriving nation under my rule, to stick our nose up at the village that had refused to help you. Naruto laughed. Another man questioned, and how will you deal with Gato and the daimyo's forces? With the point of my blade. Naruto replied with a grin. I have a secure place to hold Gato until I can deliver him to Inari here to give the final blow. I can begin as soon as you agree, or you can decline this last chance to free yourselves and I will leave. After exchanging glances, the villagers nodded their approval. Soon after, Naruto departed, gesturing for Dosu and Kin to come out of the darkness. As they walked, he inquired, how tight is security on Gato's compound? Nothing we can't handle. The 4 shinobi don't stay in the compound, they are located in a treetop hut in the forest. Kin stated. Naruto went on, are any there at this time? Dosu answered, none. Gato depends on his thugs this time of night. And the 4 shinobi, do we have names? Yes. The leader is one to be slightly concerned about, Zabuza Momochi. With him is a masked nin, female from the looks of it, and the Oni brothers. Dosu clarified. Naruto inquired, anything else? Only that they are unhappy with their current employment. Apparently Gato has been paying them less than what they have been getting. Kin continued. I see. This works to our advantage. Naruto laughed. We strike tonight. Gato will be captured and his army killed. Leave no survivors. As Naruto headed towards the compound, the two nodded and disappeared back into the darkness. Yes, sir. Arriving in complete darkness, the 3 slipped onto the walls and killed each guard in silence. It was not long before the whole outside was covered in corpses, none of them having sounded as they passed away. At that point, Naruto ordered the 2 to ascend to the roof and work from the top down, while he went through the first floor and ascended. The door silently opened, and Naruto immediately began murdering everyone he encountered, whether they were servants or soldiers. If they weren't in chains, they perished like the others. After killing everyone on the first floor and the basement in less than 30 minutes, he made it to the second floor, where Dosu and Kin were waiting for him outside a door. Dosu reported, we already cleared the room. Gato is in here. Good evening, Piggy. I'm here to hold you until the slaughter. Naruto nodded as he entered and stood over the dozing Gato, waking him up with a foot on his throat. Naruto activated his Sharingan and pulled Gato into the Kamui dimension before he could scream. Naruto nodded to the other 2 shinobi after finishing this and started looking through the compound for all the valuables and making a list of all the cash, food, and other necessities that were in one location. After finishing, he instructed the 2 to remain here while he went to deal with the shinobi. When he finally located the treetop cottage at dawn, he saw the Oni brothers preparing to ambush him. They both blinked and froze when he said, I would advise against that if you want to live. Zabuza remarked behind him, not bad Gaki, now who are you and what do you want? My name is Naruto, and I am the soon-to-be ruler of this nation. Naruto responded as he faced Zabuza. I have already killed all of Gato's men that were stationed at his compound and have hidden him in a place that only I am able to access. I intend to remove the daimyo from power as well and have the villagers complete the bridge. Now as for the reason that I am here, I want to hire you. Hire us? What makes you think that we would listen to you? Zabuza asked with a laugh. Naruto said, you listen to that fat sack of crap. He had money. And I now have all of his, minus what will be returned to the villagers, replied Naruto. And if I decline? Calmly, Naruto said, I kill you. You think you can? Snarled Zabuza. I spar on par with Kisame, and have managed to best him a handful of times. Naruto responded, observing Zabuza's eyes widen. So you tell me if I won't be able to kill you. Okay. Zabuza said, nodding. What do you want us to do? I want you to go back into Mizu no Kuni, search out the rebels that seek to overthrow the Yodem Mizukage and inform them that I will help finance them. And if things look as bad as I think they do, I will personally kill him. Zabuza inquired, and what do you want in exchange? With a chilly smile, Naruto declared, I will want the right to name the next Mizukage, and the entire loyalty of Kirigakure no Sato. At this, Zabuza blinked and understood that this blonde teenager desired more than to be the leader of a tiny island. He said, you're making a play for power. I am making an empire, replied Naruto. Now the only question is, will you be joining me in making it, or will you just be another sacrifice to my plans? Feeling the pure ki emanating from the red-eyed shinobi, Zabuza began to perspire. He was aware that this child would quickly kill him and the others if they attempted to resist. Zabuza nodded, fine. Good. Naruto responded with a nod. I will of course be placing seals onto you that will kill you if you attempt to betray me. Zabuza nodded, appreciating his own life. Fine. As Naruto made the seal array on each of them, the four were soon standing in the cottage. Zabuza and the Oni brothers were not an issue, but the final person in their group refused to take off their shirt. Haku quickly took off their shirt, and Naruto nodded at her tiny bust. "It is either you remove it or I will kill all four of you." Naruto's icy response appeared to have the desired effect. After the seals were in place, which took only a few minutes, he activated them and gave them instructions. Again, go to Mizu no Kuni, find the rebels and inform them that you have been sent by the new ruler of Nami no Kuni to offer assistance. Naruto instructed them. After giving their nods, the four left, with Naruto heading to Inari's house. They were overjoyed when he broke the news to them, and Naruto assured them that the stolen items would be given back once he had dealt with the daimyo. As Naruto strolled through the village, he could see that the word was getting out and that people were applauding his actions. When he arrived at the daimyo's palace at noon, he discovered that the remnants of Gado's thugs had joined the daimyo's guards. "Let this be your only warning," Naruto yelled, "anyone that does not throw down their weapon and surrender will be killed. Daimyo, I will have your head for your corruption." After saying this, he began to walk toward the palace, where he was initially met with jeers. However, when they attempted to shoot him down, their arrows went through him like a mirage. After drawing his blade and severing the hinges, he kicked the gate, sent it flying down the path, and smashed the two guards at the doors, killing them before they even realized what had happened. He then pumped chakra into his leg. The guards attempted to overpower Naruto as he proceeded down the path, but his blade was too swift, and they all perished before they could get to him. The archers were waiting for him when he went to the door after all the guards outside had been killed. This time, he simply kicked them open. The commander yelled, "Fire!" as they released the shafts. Naruto merely grinned as he transformed into an intangible being and advanced directly on them, pausing when they ran out of arrows. "My turn." Naruto smiled as he slashed through the archers, wishing they were all dead, and activated the Gura Taisation Ken. As Naruto advanced on the daimyo, he encountered an increasing number of guards hurling themselves at him while he walked through the palace with the howling blade, leaving their corpses on the floor. After nearly half an hour, he eventually located the country's ruler. Nearly a dozen armed samurai were waiting for the blonde, and he was huddled behind them. "Stop there!" yelled the leader. As he approached the daimyo, Naruto hit them with a ranged attack, removing the heads of all 12. "No!" In front of the cowering man, who appeared to have already urinated on himself, he finally stopped. "Please, I'll give you whatever you want, just spare me," he begged. Naruto knelt down in front of the man and stabbed him in the throat, saying icily, "No, your nation is mine now." Naruto withdrew and sheathed his blade after saying those last words. After leaving the room, he started looking around the palace and eventually located the records room where the daimyo kept his taxes and the kickback he had been receiving from Gado. In order to get through this, Naruto quickly made a number of clones. After everything was resolved, he made more to remove the dead bodies as he returned outside. The entire turn that Nami no Kuni had taken was celebrated extensively over the course of the following week. The people were ecstatic that the new ruler had permitted them to finish the bridge and had returned all of their stolen property. In exchange, he had only requested that they each have a seal put on them and pay a monthly tax equal to 1/6 of their total income. Although none of them was entirely certain of the purpose of this, they had faith in the new leader and his plans. On the day the bridge was finished, Naruto arrived on it with Dosu and Kin at his sides. He paused in front of Inari, who had guided the villagers in finishing the bridge. Naruto nodded as he opened the dimension's doorway, and Gado, much thinner but still alive, fell out. As promised, here is your vengeance. After putting a foot on Gado's back, Naruto gave his katana to Inari. With an expression of intense anger and agony, the young man swung the katana down, capturing the former industrialist's head and allowing it to bounce on the bridge. Naruto looked at the crowd and nodded, saying, "Well done. Now there is another reason why you are all here. That is to activate the seals." They looked perplexed, but as soon as Naruto made a single hand sign, all of their unfavorable opinions of him vanished. They could not possibly defy him because he was their leader and his words were law. Kin said, "What did you do, sir? The common people are nothing but fools and sheep. So I made them into real sheep. They will do what I command without a moment's hesitation. Watch. Inari, go and slap your mother." As though it were entirely normal, Inari said, "Of course." Then he approached Tsunami and gave her a slap so forceful that she fell to the ground. "See." Naruto replied, "I will not tolerate dissension. They approve of me now, but eventually the people will turn against their rulers and hate and anger will take the place of the loyalty that they should show me. So I removed that entire possibility." Naruto chuckled as he headed toward the palace. My people, go about your lives. If I have a need for you I will speak it. The cries were, yes Lord Naruto. As the crowd dispersed and Naruto made his way back to the palace, where he would soon start formulating further plans for his upcoming empire. With a glass of wine in his right hand, Naruto leaned back in his throne and watched a few of his thralls engage in combat, letting out a satisfied sigh. Since none of them wanted to appear weak in front of their lord and master, he frequently had them spar in front of him to make them work even harder. He had been assembling a new force of soldiers from among the town's various men and women. He felt Kin come into the room through the side door and come toward him as he watched a particularly vicious match. Kin whispered in his ear, "Sir, Dosu has returned with information for you." After placing the glass on the little side table, Naruto nodded and said, "Very well then. Enough. You have pleased me. You are dismissed for the day." "Yes Lord Naruto," exclaimed the fighters as they departed, putting the practice weapons away. Dosu was waiting in the side room, which Naruto and Kin then walked to. "Well?" inquired Naruto. "I managed to get some interesting information out of Konoha as you requested. It seems that the Hokage is planning on bringing back Tsunade Senju to train a new batch of medical nin. He's even planning on offering her to place a medical nin on every team like she petitioned the Sandaime Hokage before she left," Dosu clarified. "Interesting." Naruto laughed. "This seems like a good time to get a spy into the ranks of Konoha. I'll do this one myself. Inform Inari that he is to be in charge while I am away. Both of you are to return to spying and information gathering." They both nodded and turned to go, with Naruto going to his quarters to get ready for his role. "Yes, my lord." Jiraiya was being briefed by Minato in Konoha on the task of returning Tsunade to the village. "We need her back, so do whatever it takes to convince her," said Minato. Jiraiya shrugged and said, "I'll see what I can do, but you know how she is. And take Naruko with you. She's been moping since she lost to Yami in the Chunin exams and some time away from the village should be just what she needs," Minato continued. In all honesty, that beat down was just what the doctor ordered. She was getting way overconfident. Jiraiya responded, "But I'll take her with me, she might have a better chance of getting Tsunade back than me." As the elder nin departed to fetch the young girl, Minato decided to disregard Jiraiya's remark regarding his daughter. Jiraiya took note of what Minato had said when he informed him that Naruko was sulking as they were leaving the village. She used to be eager to go on a mission and demonstrate her abilities, but right now she was quiet and didn't want to talk to her godfather. As they were walking, Jiraiya inquired, "Are you still upset about losing to Yami?" Huffing, Naruko said, "I'm not upset." "Sure you aren't." Jiraiya laughed. "Well, there is always someone stronger than you out there." Naruko whispered, "But Dad said I was the best the village has. And Yami was the best that AIM had. Plus he isn't a prodigy like you are, so he had to fight tooth and nail for his skills. Thus he pushed himself further than you have for now," Jiraiya clarified. After a brief period of silence, Naruko said, "You ever lose like that?" "Yeah. Orochimaru kicked my ass like that once when we were kids, right in front of Tsunade too." Jiraiya laughed. "But in the end I got right back up and once I was fully healed fought him again. In the end they may be stronger than you but it doesn't mean that they are better than you." "Really?" inquired Naruko. "Really, Yami is a tough customer, one that doesn't come around very often. Be thankful you fought him in a situation where he couldn't kill you outright in the first 5 seconds, because that is the kind of guy you run from on the battlefield." Jiraiya laughed. "And just think he still has some growing up to do himself." As they walked on, Naruko sighed, "That's not helping me, Jiraiya." With a sigh, Naruto arrived in Tanzukagai, the next gambling town. He had been to 4 of them in the last week, and he was growing weary of looking for his godmother. After stopping at a few different dens along the way and winning a respectable sum of money from a few hands of different games, he asked about Tsunade and was relieved to learn that she had been spotted in town. Grinning, he summoned a large number of Kage Bunshin and sent them looking for her. When they vanished, he grinned and proceeded directly to the bar where she was now drinking. When Naruto saw Tsunade, he stopped as he entered the room and scowled at her. Tsunade muttered a question as she turned to face her student after giving him a long, hard look. After the student responded, Naruto approached her and smiled. "Ba. Chan," he said with a smile as he took a seat opposite her. Tsunade laughed as she glanced at Naruto and said, "You're looking well, Naruto. There are only 2 children stupid enough to call me that." Grinning, Naruto said, "Thanks." He had put on leather armor, a light pack, and worn black travel gear. A standard katana rested on his hip, and his eyes had been restored to their former cerulean grandeur with a henge. The student nodded as Naruto glanced at her and instantly recognized her, Naruto. He exclaimed, "Shizune.ni, Chan, man, you have grown up. Shizune laughed and said, you are one to talk. You've got to be as tall as Minato by now. Tsunade questioned, so what are you doing here, Naruto? On my way back from a mission, stopping her for the night. Naruto replied, what about you? Tsunade shrugged and said, here for a few days then back to traveling. Shizune inquired, so how are things in the village? Naruto paused, glancing at her before turning back to Tsunade. With a frown, Naruto questioned, you haven't heard? Tsunade asked, a little worried, heard what? As their eyes grew wide, Naruto answered, I left, a little more than 10 years ago. Tsunade cried out, left? What are you talking about? I got tired of being ignored, and playing second to Naruto and everything. I just up and left, and no one came looking for me to my knowledge. I went to AIM, got trained to be a shinobi and now I do free lance work. Naruto clarified. Shizune exclaimed, you were ignored? What were Kushina and Minato thinking? Naruto laughed and said, it doesn't matter, I've been on my own for so long I bet they think I'm dead. Clearly about Naruto. Tsunade sighed and said, that's not good, Naruto. You should go back. Coming from you. Naruto gasped. Come on Chan. You left because you had your own ghosts there, you really don't have a right to be telling me to go back. Tsunade answered, I'm still a loyal shinobi. Naruto noted, I was never a shinobi in Konoha. I left when I was still a civilian. After exchanging glances, the two medics turned back to Naruto. You should at least try to make peace with your family. I'm sure that they miss you, Shizune said. Naruto snorted, but for you too I will at least try. I doubt it. Tsunade nodded and said, good. So what have you been up to? After leaving the last gambling den, Jiraiya and Naruto soon found themselves heading to a bar for a drink and some food. Shizune, Tsunade, and a blonde with his back to them were seated on the table with multiple sake bottles as they walked in. And the customer looks at me and says, wait, who's watching the horses if you're here? The blonde exclaimed. Jiraiya approached the older woman and called out, Tsunade. Tsunade laughed and said, ah Jiraiya, this is just a day of reunions. When Naruto turned in his seat and saw Naruto staring at him with her mouth open, he grinned and said, oh hey Jiraiya. Hey, Naruto, come take a seat. Naruto yelled, you, as she attempted to strike him. Naruto grabbed her wrist, flipped her onto the ground, and only leaned enough to avoid the fist. Naruto looked back at the two medics and sighed, geez sis, always to the violence. I was enjoying myself here. Does this count as me trying to make nice? He asked. Looking at Naruto on the ground, Tsunade sighed and said, no, well, pull up a chair. You too, Jiraiya. Shizune glanced at Naruto as soon as the two newcomers were seated at the table. So what happened with the rest of that mission? She inquired. Had to walk all the way back to the town, but the mission was a success and this guy gave me an outstanding review. Naruto laughed. So what are you doing here, Jiraiya? I'm here on business actually. Jiraiya breathed a sigh of relief. Minato sent me to ask you to come back to the village. He's prepared to accept the proposal that you made to Tobi sensei years ago. Tsunade snorted, HMPH, and if I decline? Minato asked me to do everything in my power to convince you. Jiraiya responded, look, I know that you don't like the village, but we do need you. Naruto spoke after Tsunade remained silent for a short while. With a smug smile, Naruto said, weren't you just telling me that you were a loyal nin and would go back when they asked? Tsunade said, but a smile was growing in the corners of her mouth. Naruto, if you don't want to get punched into next week, I'd stay out of this. Please Chan. After what Orochimaru did to the village, we need all the medical nin we can get. Naruto begged, and my teammate Sakura would be a great candidate, she already has great chakra control. Geez. I'll think about it, okay? Tsunade said, looking directly into Naruto's eyes as the young girl gave her puppy dog eyes and then sighed. Jiraiya nodded and began to sip his own glass of sake, saying, that's fine. So Naruto, you're looking well. Naruto laughed and said, 10 years of constant training will do that to you. By the time the bar closed, Jiraiya was escorting a very inebriated Tsunade back to the hotel while Naruto went to their hotel to sleep, leaving Naruto alone with Shizune as they walked. Soon, they were engaging in meaningless banter, with Naruto glaring at Naruto whenever he spoke. Shizune observed, Naruto seemed very upset with you. As they walked, Naruto nodded, yeah, but we never did get along too well. I know, but from her reaction it seems like she really hates you now. She might, maybe mom and dad did feel some regret and pushed her harder to try and forget about it. Either way it doesn't matter too much to me. Naruto said as he looked around. When Shizune noticed the look, she inquired, "Something wrong?" Now that he was aware that the street was deserted and that no one was in the area, Naruto shrugged and said, "Nothing, thought I heard something." He smirked as he dragged her into an empty alley, knocking her unconscious with a speed Shizune wasn't prepared for. When he arrived, he shifted her shirt just enough to reach her chest, where he started the elaborate seal design that, when activated, would become the slave seal. After a few minutes, he activated it, and Shizune was awakened by the chakra pulse it produced. With her head bent toward Master Naruto, Shizune uttered, "Master Naruto, how may I serve you? You are to be my spy inside Konoha. You are going to act normally around everyone else unless otherwise ordered to. You will send me regular reports, sending them by messenger bird to a different outpost that I will designate with my reply. You will follow my orders discreetly and ensure that you raise no suspicion when you are following them." Shizune nodded and said, "Yes, Master Naruto. Good, now act normally around me for the rest of the time here and make sure to raise no suspicion from Tsunade." Naruto concluded. Shizune nodded once more as they left the alley and soon parted ways, with Naruto making his way to his hotel room. Of course Naruto. He could hear the explosive tag outside his window hissing because the blonde slept lightly. He replaced him with a cage bunshin and reappeared on the building across the street just as the tag went off, seeing Naruto leap through the smoke and into the room, only to discover that he was not there. His quick reaction was the result of years of practice. As he sat where Naruto could see him when she turned to return through the damaged wall, Naruto smiled and waited for a short while before he saw her turn and see him. "You!" she yelled as she hurled multiple shuriken at him, which would have struck him in the face if he hadn't leapt to the ground. He flashed hand signs and used chakra to stick to the building's side. As he fired dozens of marble-sized wind spheres into his sister, who had not had time to react, Naruto said, "Futon. Sandan-ya, shotgun." His sister skidded back from the shots. When he saw the burst of fire coming directly at him, Naruto blinked and scowled as she did not charge at him. He jumped up to see his sister emerge at him while flashing more hand signals and the fire jutsu smash into the building. Naruto roared, "Kaden. Karya, Enden, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet." 3 distinct fire dragons were on their way to Naruto, who saw them and smiled as he flashed more hand signals. Sweden. Mizu no Tate, Shield of Water. Naruto smiled as he spit out a ton of water, causing it to form a sphere around him. When the fire struck, the water he poured into it created a huge column of steam, and he continued to do so to avoid being roasted alive. After putting out the fire, Naruto took advantage of the steam to activate his Sharingan and pinpoint his sister's location. He then moved toward her, drew a katana, and struck her with the back of it, sending her skidding from the rooftop where she had landed and falling towards the street. Immediately reacting, Naruto landed on the building's side just like Naruto had done before, skidding to a halt and launching a few kunai into the air in case her brother decided to carry on the attack. After being rewarded with the sound of her kunai being deflected, she assumed a fighting stance and allowed her ears to detect Naruto's attacks. Soon, Naruto and Naruko were engaged in a lethal dance, with the blonde girl fending off his katana with 2 kunai while Naruto made sure his blows were quick and short to prevent her from using the 2 kunai defense system. The steam soon cleared, allowing the two to see once more. Naruto stopped using his Sharingan and concentrated more on his hyper-awareness to monitor his sister's attacks while they were fighting. Jiraiya, who was standing between them on the side of the building and appeared utterly incensed, grabbed both of them by the backs of their necks and threw them apart after they had been fighting for a few more minutes. He looked at them both and yelled, "Enough," at them. When he began yelling at her, Naruko appeared embarrassed, and before she could counter, Jiraiya gave her a glare telling her not to. Sheathing his blade, Naruto looked directly into Jiraiya's eyes and declared that he was innocent of any wrongdoing. "Shizune has gotten the last of the civilians away. What is going on here?" exclaimed Tsunade as she arrived. Jiraiya looked between the two blondes and said, "That's what I would like to know. Who would like to explain?" he asked. "She attacked me," calmly said Naruto. "I was sitting in my hotel room when I heard the sound of an explosive tag outside my window. I reacted and used the Kawarimi no Jutsu to get out of the room. I saw Naruko go in and when she came back out I attacked in self-defense, using techniques that would do minimal harm to her and my surroundings." "Naruko?" Jiraiya asked, glancing at the girl who gave Naruto a fierce look before continuing. "I wasn't going to kill him, just beat him up enough to tell me where he hid Mom's sword and Dad's scroll." Tsunade looked at Naruto and said, "What now?" "I took those when I left." Naruto shrugged, adding, "And they are in a safe place that only I can get to." Tsunade looked between the blondes and sighed, "Naruto, you both are idiots." The two blondes in question simultaneously exclaimed, "Hey," and then exchanged glares. "This is old news in the village, Tsunade." Jiraiya responded. Minato already had copies of the jutsus in the scroll, so he managed to make another one that was very close to the one that Naruto took, and Kushina has managed to get another katana. "But they shouldn't have had to. If you hadn't run away, none of this would have happened," Naruto yelled. "If I had stayed, I would have always been in your shadow. I made my choice and I'm happier from it," Naruto replied as he looked at Tsunade. "If this is what I have to make nice with, then forget it. I'd rather walk barefoot through the K's no Kuni desert than try to make amends with a spoiled brat and the bastards that claim to be my parents." Jiraiya swiftly followed Naruto as he vanished in a whirl of leaves, but Tsunade prevented Naruto from doing so. Jiraiya yelled, "Naruto," as he overtook the blonde who had halted several blocks earlier. Naruto stopped and sighed. What is going on here? When I saw you at the Chunin exams, your eyes were different, and you were an aimed shinobi." As Naruto released the henge, he sighed and said, "Undercover. I'm supposed to be getting close to the new ruler in Nami no Kuni." "Why?" inquired Jiraiya. "Because Nagato is worried about this. This guy is up to something and he doesn't want to be caught flat-footed. He sent me undercover to get close to this guy and find out what he is up to. He's gathering forces for something, but no one knows what." This new information caused Jiraiya to frown. Since Nami no Kuni had closed their borders to Hai no Kuni after Konoha blacklisted them, he was aware of this enigmatic new ruler, but he didn't know many specifics. He was now aware that he would have to keep a close eye on this country going forward. According to Jiraiya, "So why were you here?" Naruto shrugged and put the henge back up, saying, "I need to go, before Naruto causes more trouble." "Here?" He then threw Jiraiya a stack of bills, saying, "To cover the damages. I tried to keep them to a minimum, but you know how Naruto is. I was on my way back from working as a free sword. I need to build a reputation first. That's why." "Yeah. Still, be careful, Naruto. I'd hate to hear that you got yourself killed." Naruto turned and went, nodding, "Thanks, Jiraiya." With a sigh, Jiraiya returned to Naruto and Tsunade, who were standing in the street alongside the police chief. To reassure the officer, Jiraiya said, "This was a Konoha matter, and we are prepared to pay for the damages." "Still," said the officer. Jiraiya handed the officer the stack of bills Naruto had given him, along with a few more of his own, saying, "Here. To pay for the damages and any injuries for the people who were caught in the middle of this. If it's not enough, send word to the Hokage and he will see to it that the rest is taken care of." Jiraiya glared at Naruto as the officer turned and left, growling, "Fine. But if this happens again, we will arrest any parties involved. You are going to be paying me back every last ryo of that," he said quietly as the girl appeared embarrassed. "I don't care what Naruto took. That was no excuse for causing so much damage and endangering people's lives. You need to use your head more before you act." While the older Sanin merely sighed and turned to face Tsunade, Naruto said, "I'm sorry. Anything to add?" Tsunade nodded as Shizune approached and informed them that the majority of the injured had only minor wounds, while the worst had been treated by her. "No, you summed it up pretty well." They soon made their way back to the village and were presenting their report while standing in Minato's office. As the two nodded and departed the room after receiving a list of shinobi from the secretary, Minato began, "All right, let me start with this. Tsunade, Shizune. Welcome back to the village. I know that this isn't exactly the first place that you want to be, but we do very much need your help. I have a list of promising students for you to look at and hopefully we can have a medic with every team within the next 3 years." After they left, Minato kept going. "Now let me make sure that I have this right. You saw Naruto, who is apparently now a free lance shinobi. Naruto attacked him without provocation, and you Jiraiya stopped the fight and let Naruto leave. Do I have that right?" "Yeah," Jiraiya replied. "Couldn't bring him back since he left as a civilian and is now officially out of your reach." "I know," Minato murmured, "which is the only reason I am not shouting at you, sensei. Naruto. Do you have any idea how much trouble you have caused because of your temper?" Naruto nodded, "Yes. Then you understand that I have to punish you, both as your father and as Hokage?" "Yes. Very well then. As Hokage, I am putting you on probation and confining you to D-rank missions for the next 6 months, meaning you get no pay for these missions as they will all go to Jiraiya to repay him for the money he had to put up for the damage you cause. As a father, you are grounded for the next 9 months, meaning you are not allowed out of your room unless your mother or I are training you, or you are out on a mission. I will be informing Kakashi of this fact so he can make sure that you don't try to pull a fast one on either of these punishments. You are dismissed, Naruto." Naruto nodded as she left the room, and Minato turned to face Jiraiya. "Yes, sir." He inquired, How is he? Doing well, Jiraiya said. He was talking with Tsunade and Shizune when we arrived, and they had convinced him to try to make nice at least until Naruto attacked him the next morning. Overall, I'd say that he is a Chunin level shinobi, if not higher. He has good instincts and a good grasp of his surroundings in a fight, since all of his jutsus caused minimal to no damage to the buildings and people around him. In fact, he was the one that gave me the majority of that money for the damages. Minato sighed and said, I see, it's good to know that he is alright. Jiraiya cautioned, he has a grudge against you and Kushina. I know. And I doubt that I could ever make amends for it, but I would like to try at least. If you see him again, try to convince him to come back. I won't force him to stay, but I want the chance to make right with him. I'll try, but he won't be easy to find. Freelance shinobi are difficult to track down as it is, and finding one in particular will be much harder. Jiraiya grinned. Thank you. Minato grinned. This will at least put Kushina at ease a bit, especially knowing that her son is a kenjutsuist. As he walked out of the office, Jiraiya grinned and said, it will. Dosu grinned from a few blocks away as he copied everything down and heard it all through the sound seal he had smuggled into the office. Naruto was sure that this new knowledge would be most helpful to him. As he completed a new iteration of his enslavement seal, Naruto scowled. If his calculations were accurate, this one would function just as well and require a lot less chakra than the other. He had been playing around with this seal for years, ever since he began plotting his own global conquest. When he had questioned Nagato about seals, the man had replied that he had little experience making them himself and that learning about them was a very dangerous and complicated subject. Tobi went and bought the boy every book on Fuinjutsu he could find because Kakuzu didn't know enough to satisfy the boy's curiosity. Naruto then created his own line of seals, which the Akatsuki frequently use. His clever seals made it easier to use by figuring out what was needed to make a tag work and how to supercharge certain elements while depleting chakra to cost others. He quickly created his own seals from this point on, beginning with one that could absorb elements like fire and lightning and then blast them back at an adversary as though you had used the jutsu or created the element yourself. He then discussed physical augmentation seals before moving on to the psychological elements. He had to exercise extreme caution in where and how he used these seals because these were unexplored areas. Before he was able to get the first version of the slave seal right, he had already killed over 5 dozen unsuccessful seal experiments. He was currently working on the third version and hoped it would perform as well as his previous versions. He got up, nodded, and strode over to the civilian they had taken from Hai no Kuni. He grinned as he put the seal on his chest while the man fought. He activated the seal with a tiny chakra burst and retreated as its effects began to take effect. When the seal had completed its task, the man finally said, Master. Return to your home and await further instructions. Act normal as if nothing happened, and if asked about your disappearance, create a convincing and easy to remember lie. Naruto instructed. As Naruto untied him and watched him go, the man nodded, yes master. Naruto grinned to himself as he tidied up his supplies before leaving his tiny Fuinjutsu chamber and returning to his palace's corridors. As he passed, he nodded to each of the thralls who were working to keep the palace looking beautiful. He stopped when he noticed an ice mirror forming in front of him. Before he could say anything, Haku bowed to Naruto as he came out of the mirror. My lord. We have made contact with the rebels and they have agreed to your terms. However, they are requesting the assistance in defeating Yagor as he has increased his security and they can no longer make any attempts to weaken his power without sustaining heavy losses and losing the support of the villagers that are supporting them. Haku clarified. I see. Inform them that I will head to Mizu no Kuni in 10 days' time and that they are to have someone meet me at the harbor. Naruto gave the order. Haku nodded as she went back into her mirror and departed, while Naruto once more prepared to depart. As you wish, my lord. He had to pay for passage on a ship that would take him to Mizu no Kuni after traveling for several days to get to the eastern shores of Hai no Kuni. Naruto grinned as he disembarked after the lengthy journey was over, letting the fascinated passengers carry on with their lives as if nothing had happened. He knew that this country would advance greatly if he could accept it in silence. He noticed a shadow passing through the crowds as he was walking, and soon the person was walking next to him. As they walked, the woman whispered, I trust that you are our guest. And if I am, answered Naruto, then I am to guide you to the meeting point. You will have to forgive me, however, as we will not be taking you to our actual hideout, she responded. Of course. Naruto grinned and let her take the initiative. Before long, they had left the tiny city and were traveling to another island by ferry. She led him swiftly through the densely populated woods until they came to a halt. 2 cloaked figures stood at the other end of the small clearing from which he had entered. The woman on the other side of the clearing questioned, You are the daimyo of Nami no Kuni? Naruto nodded, I am. From behind the woman who had spoken, a man said, "Then you know that we are in dire straits to be accepting outside help for an internal matter." "I do. That is why I am here," replied Naruto. "I helped turn Nami no Kuni around from the downtrodden hellhole that it had become under my predecessor's leadership, and I will help you to do the same." "Why?" inquired the man. "Because I have a dream of world peace, and I intend to see that dream to fruition." Naruto replied, "I know that you will likely not believe me and that deeds will speak louder than words, so allow me to prove to you my intentions." The woman who had escorted him there inquired, "How so?" "I will remove Yagaru from his position of power. All I will need is the information on his abilities, the security of the village and his personal areas. I will also need to know to what extent has your daimyo gotten involved." Before speaking, the three figures exchanged glances. The second woman clarified, "We will need time to gather the maps and documents needed to show you this." Naruto sat on the ground and waited for the three to disappear, saying, "Then do so. Time is of the essence." Naruto paused for a few seconds before continuing. "Come out now." As he emerged from the fog and stood next to Naruto, Zabuza merely laughed. "Their base is nearby enough where they shouldn't be gone for more than an hour, plenty of time for me to give you the rundown." "Then do so. From what my sources have gathered, the daimyo and his forces are staying out of this due to the fact that they fear that if they oppose one side or the other that they will suffer retribution should the side they choose loses." Zabuza started off. Naruto snorted, "Gutless wretches. Yagaru is incredibly paranoid at this time, more so than when I served him. He doesn't allow any of the same servants to have the same set schedule, and he changes his randomly. He's likely suffering the negative effects of a powerful genjutsu that hasn't been updated in some time." Naruto laughed and said, "That would probably be my late friend Tobi. Anything else?" "The woman in charge is Mei Terumi. She has some powerful abilities and would likely be the next Mizukage once you get the turtle off the throne. She's the one that met you here. The man with her is a former Enbu agent here named Aoi. He has a Byakugan under his eye patch, so be cautious around him. The one that escorted you here is just a basic shinobi with no real threat to you. She was sent on the off chance that this was a trap and she could be easily lost without any repercussions on them," Zabuza clarified. Naruto said, "I see. Where are the other three?" "In various locations, though I have kept Haku close by to deliver hidden messages when needed. She's getting better with her Hyoden since we got here. She's had more time to practice it in an espionage sense instead of a combat one." Naruto added, "Now get going. I will wait for our hosts to return." Zabuza merely nodded before vanishing once more into the haze and swiftly disappearing from view. After Zabuza left, Naruto waited for almost an hour until Mei and her group came back and placed a number of folders in front of the blonde. "This is everything that we have on Yagaru, from his abilities to the closest thing that he has to a schedule. This also included the village defenses and the layout as well," Mei continued. Naruto said, "Great, and the papers pertaining to the daimyo?" Mei answered, "In the third folder." Naruto nodded as he got up and walked into the shade of the forest to start reviewing the material. "Good. I will read over this and formulate my own plan." He had his plan for the following morning, and after ensuring that he was adequately prepared, he slipped off in the direction of Kirigakure no Sato. With his black cloak pulled up to conceal his features and make him appear like a specter in the village's streets should anyone spot him, he used the mist to his advantage and used his Sharingan to turn intangible as he slipped through the walls and into the village. He walked into the tower and up to the Mizukage's office, where he heard someone pacing, taking some time to avoid the constant patrols that were moving about the village. Naruto smirked as he walked out a window and toward the large window overlooking the office, where he saw Yagaru pacing and muttering to himself while attempting to solve a problem. Yagaru continued to pace as Naruto passed through the window and gazed at the Yondaime Mizukage with a mixture of curiosity and sympathy. "It's those freaks. They want me dead. I have to kill them first," he muttered, but that man with the red eyes said to not wipe them all out. But he could be a spy. Or he couldn't be. Deciding that removing him from the severely damaged village and transporting him to the Kamui dimension would be the best course of action, he panicked and started to change into his full Biju state as soon as he pulled the Mizukage into it. He roared angrily as he entered the second stage of the Biju cloak, where he no longer appeared human but had not yet fully transformed into the Sanbi. "No, I will not be controlled again," he exclaimed. As he leaned around one of the tails that attempted to spear him, Naruto asked, "Really now? Because the man I took this eye from seemed to have done a very impressive job of manipulating you. Turned you into this raving lunatic that stands before me." Naruto then leapt over a tail that attempted to stab him from behind before flipping and landing behind Yagaru. "You are suffering from the effects of a powerful genjutsu that my mentor placed on you. Allow me to alleviate it." He roared, "Get away!" as he smashed the ground and made Naruto back off while transforming into his full Biju form. Naruto laughed as he skidded back, then created a clone that was adding the elemental release and a Rasengan in his hand. The hard way it is then. He had rapidly come to the conclusion that a clone was the best option for speed and that attempting to do both at the same time was difficult and required a lot of preparation. He was currently developing his own version of the Lightning Rasengan, but as he completed it, he went one step further and turned it into an S-ranked ninjutsu. It grew into a spear that flashed a bright yellow light, its point aimed at a diagonal that changed from facing the left to the right each time it flickered. Yagaru roared, "Die!" as he launched a Bijudama at Naruto, who lunged forward, switching back to the pocket dimension above his head and phasing into reality to dodge the blow. Naruto roared, "Raiden! Rasen Javelin!" as he drove the spear into Yagaru's neck and smiled. The giant turtle roared in agony as the electricity struck him, and then he shifted back and lay twitching on the ground as his nervous system attempted to recover from such a potent technique that almost destroyed every nerve in the body. Before utilizing the Sharingan to enter the defeated Kage's mind and eliminate the influence that Tobi had left there, Naruto shook his head and walked over to gaze down at him. After finishing, Naruto took a step back and waited for the Jinchuriki to calm down before addressing him. Gazing at Naruto, Yagaru exclaimed, "I'm free. You saved me." Naruto laughed and said, "Not quite. You're not even close to being saved yet." "What do you mean? The Genjutsu may have been the cause of your actions, but in the end the people want you gone. If you try to reassume control, then you are walking into an assassination attempt. The people don't want you around anymore, and the only options you have are to die here and now, or to accept my offer." Naruto clarified as he gazed at the young gentleman. "What kind of deal? We will fake your death and you will become my shadow. My personal bodyguard that will help me defeat my enemies and achieve world peace." Yagaru snorted and said, "World peace? That will never happen." Naruto grinned and said, "Maybe, but we will never know unless we try. Now what will it be?" he asked. "I'll accept. Life is preferable to death," as he applied the same kill seal he had used on Zabuza and his group to the former Kage. Naruto said, "An excellent choice. Now hold still while I place a seal on you that will prevent you from betraying me. This seal will kill you if you attempt to betray me in any way. I cannot afford to have my plans ruined by a traitor." Yagaru stood up slowly and said, "Clever. So I am your bodyguard now?" he asked. As he opened a black cloak with a black mask with a white turtle face design on the front, Naruto explained, "And you will also be a sounding board for ideas at times and a general when the final war begins. You will wear this at all times, unless otherwise ordered to," he said. As he put on the mask and spoke, his voice changed to, "Seals underneath?" Yagaru nodded and said, "Fine." Pulling them out of the Kamui dimension, Naruto responded, "To hide your chakra and to alter your voice." Naruto sat smirking behind the desk, waiting for Mei to come, and ordered Yagaru to leave the tower and wait close to the forest's edge. When Mei came in a few hours later, he was sitting there grinning as he perused different files. Mei said, "You killed him? Incinerated his body? Couldn't run the risk of him recovering from a failed attack?" She scowled and asked, "Then why are you still here?" Naruto laughed as he turned to face her, his dark eyes piercing her very soul. "You forget my terms for aiding you. I get to name the next Mizukage, along with the loyalty of this village." She questioned, "And if we decline?" With a smile on his face, Naruto said, "I've kept my end of the agreement. You wouldn't want your next Mizukage to follow the footsteps of the previous one, would you?" Mei hissed, "Is that a threat?" "It's merely a statement. I have no intention of letting you break this agreement, so think carefully about your next choice, as it will determine if you will lead this village as a proper shinobi, or if you are simply a puppet holding this position," Naruto said quietly. Glaring at the blonde behind the desk, Mei spat a ball of lava at Naruto, who vanished from view as he appeared to her right, his smile gone, without giving any indication of what she meant. Naruto sighed as if he had just crossed something off his to-do list. Very well then. As he walked in front of her, he drew a kunai to tear open her shirt and kicked Mei in the side, sending her flying into the wall where he made two clones to hold her down. She spat, "What are you going to do? Rape me?" "Hardly, though not because you are unattractive," Naruto replied as he opened the ink set. "I'm going to follow through on what I warned you. You will be the Godem Mizukage, but in title only. Try to channel any chakra and my clones will hurt you." After saying those last words, he hurriedly started drawing the seal on her skin. She attempted to fight back and move, but the clones that were holding her were immobile. He finished in a matter of seconds, and after channeling his chakra into the seal, he watched as it erased Mei Terumi's mind and transformed her into a mindless doll. "Rise, slave!" Naruto began to scream. "You are now the Mizukage of this village. You will begin by giving the order to have all shinobi and civilians place the following seal on their hearts in order to protect them from a similar genjutsu that was placed on Yugaru. Unless I am around, you will behave as the previous you had, and will ensure that no suspicion falls upon you that you are a mere puppet. Am I understood? Mei nodded and continued to make the announcement, saying, "Yes, my master." Many of the shinobi were apprehensive about this, but they complied after Mei clarified the rationale and the necessity of the action. As he sent a wave of his chakra over the village, Naruto smirked to see that all of the seals were in place. He felt a good deal of his chakra vanish, leaving him breathless and a little lightheaded. Suddenly, everyone in the village realized that Naruto was their master and lord, and that even the Mizukage was his servant, making them his own. They continued as usual, understanding that unless instructed otherwise, he wanted them to act as though nothing had changed. A voice behind Naruto said, "Most impressive." Naruto turned to see Zetsu standing there. Naruto turned to face the enormous plant and nodded, saying, "Zetsu. Sensei. What do I owe the pleasure?" White Zetsu responded, "It was very well done. Just checking on the man who killed Tobi." Naruto answered, "I learned from the best." Black Zetsu cautioned, "But you should know that you upset our master's plans. So you were taking orders from someone else." "I thought so. Regardless, I do not care. I am implementing my own plan." Naruto responded with composure. "Hey, and doing an impressive job of it." White Zetsu laughed. Taking control of a small nation and one of the 5 great shinobi villages is no small feat. "It's only the beginning," replied Naruto. 3 different plans for world peace, only one will succeed. Let's see which of us it is." Before Zetsu could continue, Naruto left and returned to the village, while Zetsu buried himself in the ground and prepared to return to his enigmatic master to share what he had discovered from Naruto. Mei and Naruto visited the daimyo 2 days later because they wanted to meet the new Mizukage and the visiting dignitary. They had to wait for a few minutes before the leader noticed them, and when he did, Naruto wanted to kill him immediately because of his phony smile. As he turned to face Naruto, he remarked, "Ah, the Mizukage. I am pleased to meet you. And the new daimyo of Nami no Kuni, a pleasure as well." Naruto smiled as he walked toward the daimyo, silently flipped the lock, and shut the door behind him. "I'm sure it is. Now then, first allow me to apologize for not assisting you in the matter with Yugaru. It isn't my place to interfere in shinobi matters after all," he clarified. Mei sat down opposite the older man and said, "Of course." Naruto chose to act quickly rather than drag it out and worsen his temper by standing off to the side and then adding his thoughts. "But it is your responsibility." That would be like Mei here saying that she isn't responsible for what her genin did out on a mission. "You are the man in charge here and yet you sat behind your desk like a sniveling coward while your people suffered," Naruto said. After a few seconds of stuttering, the Mizu daimyo yelled, "You have no right to say that. Don't you? Apparently you haven't heard about how I became the daimyo of Nami no Kuni. I killed my predecessor after I found out that he helped a corrupt industrialist monopolize the shipping industry and bleed the country dry, even going so far as to kill an innocent man who was trying to build a bridge to aid his people. So what makes you think that you are any different than him, allowing your people to suffer under the insane actions of the Yodem Mizukage?" Naruto laughed as he moved closer, allowing his ki to see the man attempting to distance himself from the blonde. He yelled, "Mizukage, stop him," Naruto said, "Slave, restrain him." As she moved swiftly and placed one foot on the daimyo's back while holding his arms behind his back with her hands, Mei said blankly, "Yes, master." Naruto approached the pitiful leader and knelt down in front of him. Naruto laughed and slashed the man's kimono off, leaving his bare chest exposed as he began a seal pattern on him. "Now then, I would kill you normally, but you are far more useful alive." When he was done, he activated the seal, turning the man into one of his numerous thralls. "Now then, let us begin with your orders." Naruto chuckled as he had the man change clothes. "You will have every person in this nation of yours place this seal upon their chests, and once done you will inform me. After that you will continue to rule this nation, however, my way. You'll be taking 15% of your total taxes and giving them to this private company. This company will be hiring many of your people to rebuild Uzu no Kuni. Once this is done, those people will be moving there and become the first of many new citizens. I think it's time that I have the capital of my empire rebuilt. If my calculations are correct, this should take approximately 3 years to complete. I am placing you in charge. Now I want you to take the greatest of cautions that this is done quietly, for if I find out that this plan is discovered by one of my enemies, I will force you to eat your own limbs piece by piece before I finally kill you. Now if anything unexpected arises, you will send word to me and stall until I can reply back." The puppet leader nodded as Naruto turned and left the room, Mei following closely behind. "Yes, Lord Naruto." Yagaru and Zabuza's group joined Naruto as he made his way through the hallways. Zabuza inquired, "What are our orders? You four will remain here and be reinstated as shinobi. You are my voice here while I am away. Mei, you are to follow Zabuza's orders as though they are my own." Mei nodded, "Yes, master." Zabuza laughed and said, "Hey, so I'm in charge technically. While I am away, yes." Naruto laughed. "Haku is to act as a messenger between us, that way I am kept informed while I am away." Referring to the masked Yugaru, Zabuza said, "Fine. Taking the dark guy with you." As he turned to leave, Naruto said, "Yes. He will be with me at all times. You have your orders, now I have other matters to attend to." As Naruto and Yugaru left and headed back toward the ferry that would take them straight to Nami no Kuni, Zabuza merely nodded.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.